Hey everyone, I'm Rick Walker with Maverick News and Maverick Multimedia, and I'm here with my co-host. Hang on just a second. Let's bring him in. Here's my co-host with his microphone now unmuted.
There we go. Hey, it's Chris from the Flow of Discourse, just covering for Bren. How you doing today, Rick?
Great. So Brenden Kennedy, I think, is going to join us a little later in the broadcast.
Oh, wonderful.
But we have a lot to share with you tonight because it has been a day of celebration down there in Ottawa, where the truckers' protest continues. But enforcement has also begun. Enforcement with Ottawa police is now underway. We saw in a news conference with Ottawa's police chief that he essentially declared war on the truckers and said that they would be taking a surge and contain approach. And while people were down there today and everything appeared to be relatively peaceful, well, it was peaceful. And the celebrations were continuing, and speeches and music and the festival type of atmosphere. Beneath the surface, enforcement was beginning, and the enforcement has been much heavier than you might think, just looking at what was going on with the crowd today. Let's bring up some live footage right now of what things look like in Ottawa at the moment. Police do have barricades in place to prevent more trucks from getting into the main demonstration area around Parliament Hill. They have more officers in the area, and man, that's loud.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was just getting annoying. It doesn't look like much has really changed.
No, on the surface, it doesn't look like much has changed, but I guarantee you things have, and I will show you how it has changed in just a moment. And throughout this broadcast, we're also going to unpack a video with Trevor Noah, the host of The Daily Show. And the reason we're going to do that tonight, folks, is because we're going to show you what the truckers are really up against. They're up against a massive government machine. They're up against the technocracy, the social media giants. They are up against a massive propaganda campaign. And at the tip of the spear, Trevor Noah is there with what he's doing on television. And this is not unusual. This is the way they play, and they don't necessarily play fair. So what do you make of everything you're seeing here so far tonight, Chris?
Well, like you said, it looks about the same on the surface. I've heard a lot of reports about 150 more police were brought in and stuff too. So we'll see how she goes. But for the most part, everything I've seen from live footage and from comments from the show and from others, it's very peaceful. We're getting a very good response even from the police on the ground, like compared to what's being told from the top. But as you know, in any organization, communication from the ground to the top of an organization usually isn't the best. So, but it seems a lot of, well, everything that's being told from the mainstream media is not what's going on here at all.
Well, I don't know what this fella's saying in the background here. It's speeches going on down there. Look at the size of that Canadian flag.
Yeah.
That's huge. And I think that's symbolic of what's been going on down there from the beginning of this demonstration, that this has been an outpouring of national pride. Apparently, the chief of police for Ottawa doesn't share that same festive spirit. And he has said that the goal of the Ottawa Police Service is to shut this protest down. And that is what they are doing quietly at the moment. And Chris, I know that you mentioned that the relationship between the demonstrators and the interaction between the demonstrators and the police on the ground has been very good. But make no mistake, even though, these officers may appear to be on one side or the other, they're taking orders and they have a job to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I guarantee you, they might be smiling and they might be keeping people safe,
Mm-hmm.
but they are also gathering and have been gathering intelligence.
Oh, definitely. It'd be stupid not to.
Well, and they are.
Michelle Trimsey has a comment we might want to pull up. I'm going to verify that. Ooh, breaking news.
Well, I don't know if that's true, so
I don't either.
We're going to check with the Ottawa Police Service, and we're going to find out. And I would, if they do that, I would say that's not only unusual, but incredibly. That's I wouldn't have expected that. But
Yeah.
with what the cops have been doing, what the senior administration there has been doing, I guess I shouldn't be surprised by anything. Hang on just a second here. Let's find out what's going on with Ottawa Police. I did just check with them. Oh, just a short time ago. Now I'm just cautioning everyone. We don't know if there really is a state of emergency. So
yeah, I'm on the Ottawa Police Service, ottawapolice.ca. There's nothing in their breaking news in regards to that. Looks like the last article they have posted is the 450 plus tickets issued since Saturday morning.
So yeah, we do have that, and I'm going to bring that up right now. This is what I've been talking about, and this is what police have issued. Okay, let me just pull this audio down so I can hear what I'm talking about. So Ottawa Police did issue this media release earlier today at 11:45 a.m. And this gives you a sense of what they've been doing. They said they were going to take this surge and contain approach. They're bringing in significantly more resources. And this is the release. The Ottawa Police Service and its partners worked through the night to reduce the impacts of demonstrators in the downtown core, respond to calls for service, and improve neighborhood safety. Overnight demonstrators exhibited extremely disruptive and unlawful behavior, which presented risks to public safety and unacceptable distress for Ottawa residents. We continue to advise demonstrators not to enter Ottawa and to go home. As of 11 a.m., Ottawa Police Service can report, and these are the charges that they've laid, okay? And this is what I said they would likely do, and that is to use every law on the books that they could to go after any of these demonstrators. And that's exactly what they've done. That's what they continue to do. And this is how they will sort of weaken the front lines of the resistance, if you will, from the truckers, so that they can move in and put an end to what has been a lawful demonstration.
From what I had found as well, the one gentleman who was ex-RCMP working with the protesters, I guess, in regards to volunteering and stuff, they've been in tight communication with the liaisons from the RCMP and Ottawa Police and so on and so forth, and they've been open, transparent, communicated, and everything straight from from the gentleman himself in one of the latest little press conferences that they've done in regards to some of the independent media sources.
Well, you know what? Regardless of what he says, no, they're not. They're not telling these truckers what they're doing. They're being somewhat open, but I guarantee you, man, they're not showing all the cards that they have in their hands. Although any police officer with any real training probably knows what they're likely to do. But this is what they have done. Overnight, they went in and they started nailing anybody that they could with anything they could. Excessive noise. They laid charges because of the use of fireworks, because they were down there. There have been dance parties, bouncy huts for the kids.
Yeah, I saw that.
So they're ticketing people for things like that. Failure to drive in a marked lane, red light violations, driving through a no truck route, which, you can't drive down that road. And so there you go, right? Seatbelt violations, driving a motor vehicle on a sidewalk. Cell phone. I guess they mean driving and using your cell phone at the same time. Disobeying a sign, improper muffler, tint on your window. Too dark. Here's a ticket.
Just basic. It's like the end of the month, right? It's quota time.
Well, it's not quotas. I know what you're saying, man. But this is just go down any little thing. Exactly. Start hitting them, intimidate them, hurt them. They want to shut this down and they want to hurt them. Obstructed license plate, failure to produce documents, stunt driving. They've seized someone's vehicle, suspended license, no insurance.
It's all the itty bitty stuff, all the in betweens.
Yeah, you can't. Somebody didn't have their proper insurance papers in their vehicle. Several vehicles were seized and towed. Ottawa Police Service negotiators supported efforts to limit noise and the blowing of horns from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. So, they're also saying that overnight there was a peak attendance of 250 people in the Wellington corridor and a large crowd of 350 people at Rideau and Sussex. It goes on. 97 criminal offense investigations have been opened in relation to the demonstration. Intelligence and evidence gathering teams continue to collect financial, digital, vehicle registration, driver identification, insurance status, and other related evidence that will be used in criminal prosecutions. Ottawa Police Service is actively working with Canadian, U.S., and international security agencies, authorities to investigate email-based threats to public officials. The hate-motivated crime hotline, they say, has received over 200 calls, and detectives are ensuring every report is investigated. Well, I'd like to get the details on that, and I'd like to know where these complaints have come from. I somehow suspect that it's unlikely we will ever find out who actually called in to level those complaints. But this is a political demonstration. And one of the oldest tricks in the books is for your political opponents to call and complain to police about you so that you get investigated. So all it takes is a complaint. And I should add and emphasize that just because there's a complaint, it doesn't mean there is actually a crime. And just because someone is charged, it doesn't mean they're guilty, because it has to go to court.
And that's what seems to be really nice too about the convoy and the truckers, because if they are seeing anything that's not aligning with their movement, and they are calling the authorities, if they see someone assault someone, they're calling the police and they're letting the system do its due process. And just power to them, right? It's like, rock on. That's, if you do a crime, you should be dealt with, right? Like,
I don't understand. I'm sorry, Chris, I'm not understanding what you're saying.
If truckers who are there
Yes.
see somebody, say a bad actor, do something that is unacceptable, they're dealing with it in the sense that a citizen should. They actually are reporting these things to the police. You're
saying that it was the truckers who were calling the hate-motivated crime hotline?
No. I'm saying if a citizen who happens to be a protester at Ottawa, there has been scenarios where if someone, random person, does something that is not what a citizen in Canada should be doing to another person, then they would call the police, like any other scenario prior to all this, just the way the law works. And that's that's what's been going on as well. I'd expect any citizen to do that. If you see someone going to burn someone's house down, you would call the police, right? You see a crime, you report it.
Okay.
And so
I don't understand how this. I don't. Maybe you don't understand what I'm saying.
Well, you mentioned the due process of the law,
Right.
which is everyone is making this narrative that the truckers are bad people and they're all this, but they're not. They're following the system just as like anybody else. And when they come across a situation where they have to call the police and report a crime, they're trusting in the system, which is just goes to show that they're not bad people. They're just like any other citizen.
Okay. Well, point is, cops are using everything they can, every tool they can. And I would say that we've seen outright fabrication of complaints against the truckers. The stupid Nazi flag, obviously a plant, not even at the freaking protest.
Yeah.
And it was one guy, and that was what everything got focused on. And that's also one of the oldest political tricks there is. You send in somebody from, who's not with the protest, and the left does this all the time. They'll send they obviously sent someone down there to carry around a Nazi flag, or it could be someone who is genuinely full of hate, but he didn't go to the protest. He was up at somewhere near the Chateau Laurier Hotel. He wasn't even with the protesters. And there was another guy with a Confederate flag who the protest with his face covered up, and they told him to get lost. So I don't know. We don't have any details on all these complaints. And 200 phone calls. Yeah, you get your political buddies who don't like freedom, and you don't like what the truckers stand for, and you get them to phone the cops over and over again. So, the cops, it's incumbent upon any police service not to just respond to complaints, but to keep things in perspective. And I hope that they've done that. But when the police chief has the kind of news conference he had this week, where he clearly laid out that it was his intention and his objective to shut the protest down.
Yeah.
That's a political statement on his behalf. So he's either being used as a tool by Justin Trudeau and other liberal politicians at the provincial and municipal level, particularly, or he is opposed to what the truckers are standing for, which is freedom, and he's taking a political stand against it. Police down there are doing more than just keeping people safe. They're taking political action. And we've seen as well with the whole GoFundMe situation that is basically amounts to a form of political warfare, because GoFundMe was really responding to government directives from Ottawa Police and government to seize those funds. And they made it clear from the beginning that the mayor and the police chief, municipal officials in Ottawa made it clear they were going to try to go after the money that had been raised for the truckers by the people of Canada. And that was just one of the tools that they've been using to try and shut this whole thing down. But of course, lawfully, they couldn't really just seize the money.
No.
So GoFundMe is refunding all of the $10 million. Well, not $1 million was released, so it's $9 million, and it's being refunded to all of the people who donated.
I'm seeing a lot of reports that it is being fully refunded as well from random individuals, random posts and such. So that is good.
Yes. And I see that some people are now redonating through the Give Send Go website to the truckers, and that organization is saying that they will guarantee that the money will get to the truckers. And no, Larry, I don't believe it is illegal to fly the Confederate flag in Canada. And I don't believe it is illegal to have it displayed on a Dukes of Hazzard car. But I could be wrong because legislation, hate speech legislation, and so on, which is still open to interpretation because precedents really have not been set yet in a
Nope.
court of law with regard to this legislation. Um, we'll have to see how all of that plays out. So all it would take is for someone to show up at a car show with a Dukes of Hazzard flag displayed on their General Lee and have somebody complain and go to court. Next thing you know, the guy's spending I don't know how many years in prison for a hate crime because he brought his Dukes of Hazzard car to a car show or drove it down the street to go get ice cream or just had it in his possession, I suppose. I don't know where these hate speech laws are going, but it is, we can see that, it's one more tool in the arsenal of people like, well, let's just focus on this comment. Ottawa Mayor comments to CTV. It's disturbing when you see the protest turning into what looks like some kind of fun carnival where they've got bouncy castles and hot tubs and saunas. That's right, folks. There shall be, during the height of this pandemic, there was to be no singing in church. There was to be no gathering of families in homes beyond a certain number. And now, by decree, there shall be no dancing in the streets. There shall be no bouncy huts for children. There shall be no festival type atmosphere on Parliament Hill. The order of good cheer is hereby suspended. For those of you who know your Canadian history, you'll know what I'm talking about. In fact, it's the opposite. It's the order of doom and gloom. So, this is kind of what's going on. Police they're cracking down. They're trying to soften up the truckers and their resistance. So there says the police are highly politicized. It's been tried before many times. Can't expect much from the chair of Ottawa Police Service. Frankly, a person with no moral compass. Yeah, Trevor's Noah Comedy Channel. Bunch of terrorists and bouncy castles. Yeah. So we knew this was kind of coming. And of course, cops aren't going to go down there in their riot gear, rifles out, semi-automatic weapons. Not going to go down there packing their, right? And then start chasing the little rugrats around, trying to catch them in the ball pit and in the bouncy castle.
Big net.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Honestly, it is difficult to even have this conversation about this. Like you hear all this stuff that's coming out and they're like, oh, they're taking hostages and now they got bouncy castles and it's just like it's a siege and it's just like, oh my goodness, like seriously, the image this is all creating is just absolutely ludicrous.
Yeah, it this is what is going on down there right now. Okay. This is what they're going to break up. Okay. So I guess if you have a mindset that these are a bunch of white redneck racist truckers, and I think this is really the problem. There's a lot of prejudice, not on the part of the people there fighting for freedom tonight, and not necessarily on the part of the truckers. There's a whole lot of prejudice on the part of the Ottawa Police Service, their senior administration, left-wing politicians, Justin Trudeau, who has been spewing hate at every turn and divisiveness. If all you see, and this is the problem, and I'm certain of it, if all you see when you're sitting in your ivory tower with your cushy government paycheck is a bunch of redneck, because this is what they see, a bunch of redneck, toothless, hayseed hick truckers playing banjos, and they've decided that these people are all a bunch of racists without really giving it much more thought. That's how they view the working class, the filthy, unwashed, dirty, unvaxxed, super spreader, pitiful serfs. That's what they're looking at here. That's what they see. And they want this broken up because they just don't want to deal with it. And this has become a threat to their lockdowns and their masks and their authoritarian measures and their restrictions. So they're going to take their money. They've almost taken the money. They've delayed the delivery of the money. They're preventing fuel from going in. They're preventing food and water from going into these truckers now. So they're trying to freeze them out, starve them out, take all their funding, soften them up by hammering them with tickets and fines, battle it with lawfare, tie them up in court for the next year, force these guys to come back and make court appearances from wherever they happen to be from for the next year, go in, and then finally, the final step, and you might see it tonight, you might see it tomorrow night, it'll likely happen at night. They'll go in and they will start to arrest people. They will strategically target the people that they want to go after first. I think I've got some footage where there was a confrontation. Cops tried to come in. The truckers basically set up what was the equivalent of a picket line and wouldn't let the cops come in. They held the line. And that's what's going on down there. And when we show you that footage, it's disturbing because it's an escalation. And with that kind of escalation, there's the potential for violence. Because when you back a dog into a corner and threaten it and start to beat it, the dog is inclined and likely to try to bite you. But when you do that to a dog, when you back a dog into a corner, threaten it, scare it, and beat it, is it the dog's fault if it bites you? Is it? Think about it. I don't think the truckers will bite. I think they're too smart, and I think they're too Canadian to do it. But apparently, some politicians and some bureaucrats in this country haven't, I guess they don't share that same Canadian spirit. So we'll see what happens over the next 24 to 48 hours, folks. But the groundwork has been laid, and we're seeing the beginning of enforcement as Ottawa's police chief has promised. Police are no longer just taking a let's keep people safe, everyone safe approach to this. They've got their marching orders, and you can expect to see more escalation. And I think it's coming sooner rather than later. That's my 2 cents worth, and that's what I'm predicting. So, Chris, what do you think? No audio, Chris. Can you please unmute your mic?
I need to go and reset my dryer. I've been trying to message you.
Okay.
Okay.
So this is, again, what we're seeing in Ottawa tonight. You know, I just find it disappointing. I've dealt with a lot of police services over the years through my work as a reporter in media, and I've always had an excellent relationship with police services in this country, especially in Ontario, local police services, RCMP, OPP, great people, great Canadians. And always the focus has been on public safety And I can't say enough about the professionalism that I've seen with police services over the years. But what I'm seeing coming out of Ottawa and what I've seen this, in the past week from the police chief, I find it very, very concerning and very alarming. But this country is not the same anymore. It just isn't. The freedom that we used to have has been suspended. The Charter of Rights and Freedoms has been essentially taken away. Not essentially, it has been. It's been shredded. And it's been done with COVID as an excuse. And now, even as other countries are removing these mandates and restrictions, here in Canada, our governments continue to cling to them, at least many of them. Some of the provinces like Saskatchewan and Manitoba, Alberta, it looks like the mandates are going to be removed. But Justin Trudeau, no, he's hanging on, clinging. And even now, Justin Trudeau, has refused and is refusing to meet with these truckers after more than a week of them being down there in front of Parliament Hill. If you want to diffuse this, all it would take to do it would be to come down there potentially and have a conversation with these guys, negotiate a little bit. They're not terrorists. They're Canadians. These are Canadian citizens. These are the people of Canada. This is what this is what they're going to come down there. This is what they're going to break up.
Yep. I don't know about you, but I'm looking forward to the next couple of years as beer commercials. All right.
Beer commercials?
Beer commercials.
I don't understand.
With Canadian patriot. Never mind.
Okay, sorry. I'm just not
patriotism, beer. One of the things we're famous for, right?
You're right, Alex. This could have been over in a day.
Easily.
And it looks like these mandates are going to come off anyway. This is just Justin Trudeau wielding his iron fist. No, I'm not going down there. I'm not talking to these redneck racist truckers. No way.
Ironically enough, 3 weeks prior, they probably served them coffee or something, and they had no idea. Bumped into them on a bus terminal.
Well,
you have no idea. You never know, right?
So, folks, just heads up, because this is what I think is coming, and pretty clear that police want this thing out of there now, and I think they want it out of there because the politicians want it out of there. More than that, they say that it's the local residents who have been complaining because of disruptions, and especially traffic disruptions. But we know that a lot of the roads that have been blocked not by truckers, but by police themselves. We know police blocked off the bridges. They've got them blocked off. They're restricting access to certain areas and preventing trucks from getting into areas and slowing down traffic and blocking off streets altogether in some sections. Not because of the truckers, and it isn't the truckers doing it. It's police. We've also seen that the government is using Canadian tax dollars to book up vacant hotel rooms. And what they did is they started doing that over the weekend so that anybody coming back would not have a place to stay. So they've done that to, again, soften up what they see as resistance and keep the crowds as low as possible in advance of them going in and taking further action, I suspect. So that's what is likely to happen. So it's surge and contain, but it's also Fernando Dude. It's Parliament Hill, and people go and demonstrate there all the time, and they have a lawful right to assemble and demonstrate any damn time they want. And if this was some other left-wing political organization as an occupation, I suspect, dude, that you would be supporting it wholeheartedly, dude.
And they'd be crying and whining that they're not getting heard the whole time. Where instead of, and it's funny because that's what that side would do, but what we're doing is we're showing determination.
Hey Gwen, maybe that's because Justin Trudeau isn't listening. So, they're not in a residential area. They're down near Parliament Hill, and they've had demonstrations down there before, and this is unprecedented. So, sorry that maybe it's a little hard for a couple of people to sleep or a few people to sleep. But you know what? The country is at stake here. Wake up. Wake up. They've been peaceful throughout this entire demonstration. And yeah, it's been a week. And it's damn time Justin Trudeau spoke to them. If he was truly a leader, he'd go down there and meet with them, talk to them. And he'd find the proper balance between safety and freedom. Yeah, you can have both.
It's not a right or a left thing. It's a Canadian thing.
Let's listen to what this guy's saying.
Okay, they're just unfortunately doing what they're told, but again, that's okay. All right, I can find a place to go to the bathroom, okay, because they're not providing that either. All right, we're finding food. We're finding everything we need. We just need to spread the love, and we just need to be patient. But I know as Canadians, that's what we do. And that's what we're going to continue to do. Okay? I love seeing so many smiles, so many faces. I've had more hugs in the last 9 days when I started than I have, I think, in my entire life. So I thank every one of you. I thank the truckers, the volunteers, the police officers, the firefighters, the paramedics, and all of the people and the kids and everyone else, the teachers, whoever's here, whatever you do. We're all Canadian, and if we stick together, we're going to end the mandates. That way, the only way my grandkids are going to read about it is in the history books on how we stood as Canadians on Parliament Hill and we brought back our freedoms. So, because we're Canadian, we're peaceful, we smile, and we just comply for now. Okay? Tonight we're going to comply. We have to stop using I. We have people working on this, and we together will make change. Okay? We can sleep in a cold truck. We're Canadian. I can snuggle in the snowbank. I'm Canadian. I will wear Depends tomorrow so I can stay here on the stage all day and have this wonderful entertainment to entertain you guys. I know to the east, to the west, I heard there's bouncy castles down there. Okay? We're going to party. Okay? We are going to have a great time until they change. I have had to change for 2 full years now. My family, my kids, everything else has changed. I have heard so many amazing stories from each and every one of you on how we've all had to adapt change, okay? But all of our hard work, all of our efforts will promote change. And we can say that we stood here on Parliament this day and we made change. We will get the fuel to our brothers and sisters and kids in the trucks. We will do that. We're just going to do it the Canadian way. Okay, I just have to manage the stage. I don't like to talk a lot. Okay, I'm going to swing it back here. Have a wonderful, safe night, and I will be here tomorrow. Thank you.
And I hope everyone does stay safe down there, including those police officers right there and everyone else down there, too.
Just tuning in, Ottawa. We're here in downtown Ottawa live. The protest here in the nation's capital.
And you listen to what that speech was like, listen to the tone of that speech, and that's what we've been hearing down there the entire time. We keep hearing about love. We see these displays of love and affection, this love of country, love of fellow Canadian, this outpouring of patriotism, Canadian flags everywhere. Counter-protesters did show up over the weekend, a small group of them. In at least a couple of spots. You know what they didn't have? Canadian flags. Not one Canadian flag. What the hell is the other side fighting for? What is the government fighting for? What is the government afraid of? They're afraid of these truckers. They're afraid of these Canadians. They're afraid of these citizens. They're afraid that we might get our freedom back. They're afraid of losing their grip on power. They are afraid. They're afraid. The government is afraid.
On their actions and the way they've been scrambling certainly speaks for that as well.
Yes. You can see that they're afraid.
Grasping for straws.
You can see that the police chief is afraid.
Have you seen, since the first press release from Trudeau from his as the response to the convoy, every time he's had a speech of some sort or he's spoken to us, you can see him. He seems a little more anxious, and just a little more nervous every time.
Well, it was clear when he made his statements with regard to the truckers that he was nervous, and he should be, because the power that he thinks he has is something of an illusion. What he doesn't seem to understand is his power comes from these people.
Mm-hmm.
His power comes from all the Canadian people, because in a democracy, the prime minister is only there to represent the people. He's there working for the people.
Mm-hmm.
He's not the boss.
Nope.
The people are the boss. You're the boss. He's forgotten that or lost sight of it. The entire government has lost sight of it. These people are out there fighting for every Canadian tonight. All of these folks out there. And it's not just truckers. We've seen people from every walk of life converge on Ottawa this past week, 2 weekends in a row. We saw similar thing in Toronto over the weekend. We're seeing it in Alberta. We've been witnessing that on the Alberta-Montana border. We've seen it in all cities across the country where convoys were set up at the local level to show support for what's going on in Ottawa.
Yeah, I do believe the border in where I am is closed. They have a bunch of farmers down there blocking the 402.
Have you confirmed that, Chris? Is that for sure?
I have seen a post. Let me see if I can pull something up for it. I heard the radio station mention it. So,
and that's the other thing that our politicians don't seem to understand here. They seem to think that this is some political movement organized by some highly organized political organization determined to overthrow the government or something. That's not what this is. This is fed up Canadians, loosely organized, but it's so widespread that it has been organic and it has just evolved somewhat on its own. But of course, it's the truckers who decided to do something. And yes, they do have some organization, but it has fallen together very quickly. The fundraising effort was simply a GoFundMe that was set up, and the money has been flowing in from Canadians across the country and rapidly. And now it's with Give, Send, Go, because the government went and sanctioned and encouraged GoFundMe to block the funds from going to the truckers. A dark, dark day when what has really happened here is the government has encouraged and facilitated and almost coerced, maybe coerced, if GoFundMe really needed to be coerced, but the government had a hand, and police had a hand in making sure that those funds were blocked. And that's really the government preventing funds that were raised for a political opponent from getting to their political opponent. I'm pretty sure that if that isn't illegal, it should be.
So I'm seeing here, let's see. So it was posted today about 10 a.m. Blackburn News. The westbound Highway 402 was closed for several hours Sunday as protesters demanded COVID-19 mandates be lifted. Hundreds of farm vehicles and tractors were parked on the highway near Front Street just before 11:30 a.m., forcing Lambton OPP to close the highway between Modeland Road and the Blue Water Bridge. US-bound traffic is being advised to use the Ambassador Bridge in Windsor. So at least I don't know if it currently is still closed, but it was at least for a time. I've seen a couple videos and clips randomly through the day in regards to the lineup that had been, but nothing pressing as of late. That being said, just above that, I'm also seeing another news report here that Ottawa declares state of emergency.
Hey, Tyson, I bet you're a liberal. I bet you. You know what? We should. Yeah, okay, whatever, man. You're so full of it. You're the one who's full of it. I swear to God, we've been watching video just like this constantly for the past week, and all these claims of defecating and this defecation in the streets and this and all these negative crap, we've seen none of it. Unedited, unfiltered, uncensored video just like this, and I have yet to see even one incident of anything that even comes close to what you just said. You are disgusting. Not one thing. And all this other stuff that the media has been ginning up, the Nazi flag, the desecration of the monuments, blah, 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 distortion, overstatement, propaganda. We showed you what it was. We showed you the video, and even the video on the Ottawa Police Service. You can draw your own conclusions from that. Someone at the War Memorial turning and yelling freedom. What do you think that soldiers fought for? What did Canadian soldiers go to war for? To guarantee our freedom. Somebody stood at the War Memorial and yelled freedom, and they said that it was desecrated because of vehicles parked all over it. A couple of people there were two vehicles parked on the area with paving stones in front of the War Memorial where media normally parks. The two people were asked to move their vehicles by Ottawa police, and the people complied. And the media and the politicians said that those vehicles were part of the desecration of that War Memorial because they parked improperly on the parking pad. this whole thing is disturbing. The way the media has been propagandizing this, the way that here's the cops, okay? Fair enough. In a group, we'll see what happens with them, but they've been circulating down there. Everything has been fine. We've heard from the protesters that the interaction with cops all week long has been very, very good. The dialogue, very good. Everyone has been kept safe. That's what needs to be going on down there. Public safety, number one. Public safety, the priority.
Protect and serve. Protect and serve.
But we are seeing escalation now on behalf of on the side of police, and you can bet that is because of political direction, either direct or indirect, and response to complaints that who knows where they're coming from. Even here on our podcast, videocast, broadcast, wherever you're watching this, we've got trolls over here making comments like the guy just a couple of minutes ago, trying to smear. Here you go. Arrest the protesters. Okay, well, if that's the way you feel. Because some people, unfortunately, seem to love all this tyranny. There are some people out there who want restrictions. There are some people who are so afraid that they'll accept anything the government throws at them. And in a way, I pity you. I feel sorry for you, because after over 2 years of fear being pumped into the public through the media from the politicians and bureaucrats, it's not surprising that a lot of people will just accept whatever the government says.
It's a little bit like Stockholm Syndrome.
Fear. They're controlling people through fear.
Now, I'm starting to read here, Rick, that there's today that, the mayor has indeed, like he meant, made a state of emergency for the city of Ottawa. So like you were saying before, that it changes the precedence here, or it changes at least the direction that it could possibly go.
So do you have the actual statement from the mayor?
It is, this is a news report from, well, basically the areas surrounding us here. And I have another one here from the Globe and Mail.
Okay. So let's do Chris, maybe you can do a search with Municipality of Ottawa. They will probably have the actual media release on their website. So let's see if we can get it direct from the source, so we're not getting a filtered and spun version of that. Although I don't discourage anyone from reading the other media, mainstream media, because I just think people should have access to all sources of information and all perspectives. And when you do, it will help you understand, if you have other perspectives on it, especially the raw source, you can then begin to see how a media outlet will spin information and turn it into propaganda.
Here, I'm sending it to you in the private chat.
Okay. So let's see if I can see that link. So there it is. So I'm going to bring up that release so everybody can see it, folks. And we'll go through it together here tonight. So there's the release. Let's see what it says. Mayor Jim Watson today declared a state of emergency for the city of Ottawa due to the ongoing demonstration. Declaring a state of emergency reflects the serious danger and threat to the safety and security of residents posed by the ongoing demonstrations. It highlights the need for support from other jurisdictions and levels of government. It also provides greater flexibility within the municipal administration to enable the city of Ottawa to manage business continuity for essential services for its residents and enables a more flexible procurement process, which could help purchase equipment required by frontline workers and first responders. Residents can continue to visit ottawa.ca or follow us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest information, updates, and developments. Okay, so let's break that down. What is this about? How would you interpret that, Chris? Like, I've got my thoughts already, but I'll let you take a first stab at that.
Well, generally, whenever you hear state of emergency, as we may notice from the Emergencies Act that was enabled to allowed all of the legislation we're dealing with on the mandates or whatever already, it's going to grant them more powers and, like it says, more flexibility that would have not normally been asked or been able to justify under normal circumstances. But it makes me interested to look up what the state of emergency and its real effects are in, like, on our government web pages to actually see the true details of what can justify enacting it, because it is a pretty big deal to do that.
It's a very big deal. And in this case, I would suggest to you that what this really means is that by declaring a state of emergency, the municipality can then request support from senior levels of government in all forms, including military support. And I'm not saying that they will bring in the military, but that starts to put that option on the table. And it also opens the door to them requesting funding from senior levels of government as well, from the federal government. So that will put more tools at the disposal, more financing, make more financing available to the local police service, to the municipality, and they can bring in more supports that way. So that's what it's about. It's about taking the funding away from their political opponent, their enemy, if you will, in this new form of warfare. I put quotation marks around the word warfare, metaphorically speaking, but this is political warfare. And so they're trying to take the funding away and from that GoFundMe, bring more funding in on their side, and bring in more tools and resources, more manpower, more boots on the ground, more people power, more first responders, potentially even military involvement. So it just puts all those options out there for them. And that, again, is why I've been saying expect escalation. But the escalation is coming from police in Ottawa and the authorities and government. It hasn't really been coming from the truckers. They're trying to starve them out, freeze them out by cutting off their fuel supply, preventing people from bringing fuel to them, preventing food from getting to them. And they've been targeting them with tickets and going after any kind of violation that, any little violation, anything, enforcing every law on the books, traffic violations, noise violations, and further to sorry, I lost my train of thought as I was reading some of these comments.
It's hard to keep up with them all.
Yeah, so further to the horn honking, the and people not being able to sleep. The truckers did agree to stop honking their horns during certain periods of time, and that without Justin Trudeau coming out and speaking with them. And so now somebody here says I'm a terrorist. Okay, yeah, I guess you need to learn the definition of terrorist. We're not aiding or abetting the terrorists, and I'm not directing anyone. I'm commenting and analyzing, and I'm not even in direct communication with anyone down there who is an organizer of any kind. We've had some people on the scene give us their perspective, share some video with us. But we're not advising anyone or directing anyone or giving anyone any advice. We're just analyzing and sharing this with Canada and trying to give people an unfiltered, uncensored view because they're not getting it from the mainstream media. And that's what's going on. Trevor Noah is South African and a supporter of the African National Congress, which is basically a communist organization. He is a useful idiot of the left who should be ignored. And I understand exactly what Joe is saying. And we do have this thing with Trevor Noah coming up because it illustrates that when we play you his video and unpack it for you, you'll begin to understand why or what the truckers are really up against, what Canadians are up against. So, yeah, the state of emergency declared in Ottawa because the truckers are down there and they've been there over a week. And this, I guess it does surprise me a little bit because, of course, there's no way we wouldn't know exactly what's going to happen. But as I said yesterday and even early on through this thing, we can expect to see, and we are seeing escalation. And police told us they were going to bring significantly more resources to bear on this because their objective is to bring it to an end, not just to keep people safe. Yeah, Brenda says, emergency status. These people are too happy waving flags too often, yelling freedom too much, breathing clean air without a mask, picking up garbage. True, they did and have been. Honking horns because you are happy, putting flowers on monuments. Stop these despicable actions. You should be staying home in fear. Exactly, Brenda.
Fear.
Exactly. There shall be no singing. There shall henceforth be no dancing in the streets. There shall be no waving of flags and no displays of patriotism. And this decree comes from on high, from our prime minister down to the mayor and the police chief. And let us not forget that it was our prime minister who kept our flag flying at half staff for how many weeks this year? How many weeks? Many weeks?
To the point where when we came around to a holiday that would have been really significant for the symbolism of it being at half-mast, it was already there. And it almost devalued that symbolism on that day. It was very unfortunate.
And here's Kevin. They are protesting over nothing in the first place.
That's
wow.
Wow. I really wish we all have a choice to be able to choose if we get touched by anybody. Like that's pretty good freedom, don't you think, Rick?
Protesting over nothing.
Like that's the most basic of it.
Oh, it's nothing.
Oh, it's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good.
It's
so
Charter of Rights and Freedoms suspended. It's nothing.
Yeah, Kev. What if somebody were to do the same thing to you but force their ideology on you and you didn't agree with it? Oh no, it doesn't matter what you say because we're doing the right thing. See, that's what's dangerous about this, isn't that right, Rick? Is it regardless of what the topic or the ideology that's being pushed, the fact of the matter is you no longer have a choice. And that's what makes this so scary because it's somebody dictating down to us where, as we have already discussed, the way our government works is it's dictated from the bottom up. We vote in people to represent us, not the other way around.
These truckers are making huge sacrifices down there.
Huge.
You know the other thing? Our government has been abusive.
Absolutely.
Abusive. They have destroyed people's lives over these stupid mandates.
But also, at the same time people have made tremendous sacrifices and have dramatic losses because of the pandemic.
With these mandates, with these restrictions, they've shut down small businesses while allowing big box stores to stay open and reap record profits. Small business owners have lost everything they ever worked for. And people like Kevin clearly don't give a damn. They don't. People like Kevin, who have accused other people of being selfish, don't care about their neighbors. They don't care about their fellow Canadians. They don't care if these small business owners starve to death. More than that, people have lost their jobs because they've made a personal medical decision. And nobody who supported these mandates, Justin Trudeau, Rob Ford, or Doug Ford in Ontario, the premier, none of the premiers, none of these politicians, none of these bureaucrats gave one rat's fart about the children of these families that suffered through Christmas, probably didn't have gifts, families that have gone without, families that continue to go without, people who have had their careers destroyed because they made a personal medical decision. Nobody cares about their health. More than that, people who make a personal medical decision and don't want to do the thing the government wants them to do. If people who need transplants, now they don't qualify. No, if you don't do this, you can't have a transplant. You get to die. People, a lot of Canadians saying it's okay to round people up and take them off to a camp. A high percentage of Canadians have been so filled with hate by our Prime Minister and his stupid followers that they've actually come out in favor of doing something as horrific as that. That's not the Canada I know. That's not the Canada I grew up in. That's not the Canada that was even here a couple of years ago. Think about it, folks. Think about it. That's what those truckers are down there fighting against. They're fighting for freedom. And what is freedom? It means a lot of different things to different people, but it seems that a lot of Canadians have lost sight of what it is, don't even understand what it means anymore. Kevin, you don't understand what freedom is, and you clearly don't understand the sacrifices these truckers are making. They're fighting for Canada. That's what's going on down there. All of this crap is beyond disgusting. And it just continues to escalate. And what's going on in Ottawa with the escalation against these truckers? Didn't need to happen, didn't need to come to this point. It doesn't need to come to where we can clearly see where it's likely to head. Why wouldn't police take steps to de-escalate this thing in a peaceful, non-combative, non-confrontational way?
Well, you got to think to some degree too, they're kind of at a loss because the Prime Minister, the person everyone's asking to be like, hey, come talk to us, refuses to do anything. So then they're left at that point where they're like kind of holding the bag. And they're like, okay, well, let's do our jobs. You know, like they're kind of stuck.
Hey, Jim. Hey, Jimmy Day Isity.
Jimmy Day.
Patriots, if you love your country, get vaccinated. You can take a bullet, but you can't take a shot. Give me a break. How about this, Jimmy? Listen up. You want to get your shot? Go ahead. Nobody judges you. That's your choice. You want somebody else to get a shot and you're willing to strap them down and forcibly inject them? That's a different story. You want to encourage somebody to get a vaccination? That's fine too. You can encourage someone. But you start to force somebody. It's not only unethical, it's illegal, regardless of what your government is telling you. It's illegal. It's horrific. It's terrifying. You want to strap somebody down and force them. Force them. Jimmy would force people. He'd force you to do it. That's where Jimmy's head is. Is Jimmy a Canadian? Are you, Jimmy? Are you? I ask you. Are you Canadian? Are you a kind Canadian? Who's selfish, Jimmy? Go ahead. You do what you want. What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? Why are you afraid of people who don't do what you do? Why are you afraid of people who don't make the same decision as you? You virtue signaling, you know what? Huh? How about it, Jimmy? Who are you going to strap down? Who are you going to round up and take off to a camp and make sure that the unclean are washed? Who are you going to go after first, Jimmy? Yeah, who's waving the swastika now, Jimmy? Who's the fascist?
No, it's interesting too. I've been trying to pay attention to a lot of the language being used in a lot of these reports, and I'm sure you've heard the one word that's been brought up a lot is like siege. It's a siege. I don't know if you happen to see some. There's been some that will say that, so I kind of decided to actually look what a siege is by definition. If you like, I'd be happy to share. I got two definitions from two different dictionaries, so a bit of cross-referencing. One was Merriam-Webster's, and the others is the Dictionary of Cambridge. So Merriam-Webster, it describes a siege as a military blockade of a city or a fortified place to compel surrender, or a persistent or serious attack as an illness. And so the Cambridge Dictionary said the surrounding of a place by an armed force in order to defeat those defending it. And I'm going to be completely honest, from both of those definitions, that doesn't apply with what's going on. They're not armed. They're not attacking anybody. They're not an army. They're not like a militia or something. Like, they're not anything of that nature. There's generally been no evidence of that at all. So I find it interesting that even, of course, they're not going to be held accountable. We haven't been holding a lot of things for account for a while, but I find it irresponsible to be using words like siege, because siege brings a pretty vivid image of brutality and savageness. You know what I mean?
You know what, Chris, and everybody watching, they can go in and they can break this up. They can do it.
Oh, good.
They have the resources, okay? But they can't win.
No, and either way, they look bad as well.
But not just that. And this is a much larger thing.
Mm-hmm.
They can't win. The reason they can't win is the people are not going to let this country die. We've seen that over the past week. The cops can go in there with their riot gear and they can find some tow trucks someplace and bring them in and yank all these trucks out of there if they want to. But these protesters, these Canadians, they'll prevail with love.
Yes.
They'll prevail because freedom, like life itself, will find a way. People yearn for it. They want it. And you can feel it. It's coming back. You saw that as these truckers rolled across the country toward the nation's capital.
Certainly.
You saw it with Canadians on overpasses, waving flags and cheering. You saw it as they stood on the sides of the highways and waved and gave the truckers cookies and handed out food. You saw it as they donated money. You saw this hope that spread across the country. And as Carla, who spent the past week down there shooting video and just immersing herself in the experience, said, they're not going to take my joy. They're just not going to take my joy, she said. And through all of this, and even as it became clear that we're likely to see, escalating enforcement and attempts to shut this down, it's just clear that the people are speaking, and the government can squeeze as hard as they want, but the people, Canadians, they will have their freedom.
Well,
They will. They will. It may take time. This is just one battle, but the war, the political war to restore freedom, maybe it's in the next election. Maybe that's when it comes. Maybe it'll be 10 years from now. It's coming. The people want it, and the people shall have it. I think what we're really seeing down there is they're not waiting for Justin Trudeau. They're just declaring freedom is back. And in any way that they end up taking that freedom, they will live freely. It's coming. So Jimmy can fantasize about strapping people down all he wants, but and maybe that'll even happen. But somehow Canadians will find a way.
Well, and clearly they have. There's a lot of people banding together in different cities across the nation, across the world. The whole world's watching.
As I've watched all of this unfold over the past 2 years, many times it has brought me to tears, because I've seen what our government has done to our country, the way they've destroyed our freedom, the way they've destroyed people's lives, and the way some people who have supported this have seemed to have taken joy in that. It's twisted and demented, and no need for it. There is a way to find a balance between safety and freedom.
Mm-hmm.
We can have both. And we see that it's coming back anyway. And the sad part of all of this is these mandates are coming down anyway. You see it happening in other jurisdictions. It's just a matter of time.
It's quite interesting too, because of course they're not gonna, the federal government or the government and they're not gonna just drop the mandates like that, right? Even though they totally could. Like, they're gonna follow the reopening model or act that they've put in place. I think a lot of that is to save face, not as much to ensure public safety, because, well, let's be honest, it's been 9 going on 10 days, and how come there's not people dying all over the streets? You know what I mean? We're doing everything that we were basically told that if we were to do, hundreds of thousands upon thousands of people are going to get sick and die. But the last 9 days, it's time to remove these. But unfortunately, they want to save face, so they have to go through the system that they've already implied. That way they can say, oh no, we're not doing this in retaliation of what's going on. We're doing this because we've already enacted this. This is what we've already had set. And that may be true, but the data and the evidence, and just looking at the numbers of the past going on 3 years, you can see that they haven't done anything. It may have slowed a little, but it didn't stop anything. Everything played out the way it was going to play out. And now experts are starting to say, we need to start learning to live with this and look at this at a different angle, But 6 months ago, 4 months ago, that would have been conspiracy theory. That would have been, oh, shut them down, right? And it's interesting to see how the dynamics of this have really evolved and changed and flip-flopped. And, for all you out there who haven't read 1984, please read it. It is a good read, and there is a lot of between the lines things that is would really let you see what's going on for what it is.
And Brenden joins us. Welcome, Brenden.
Hey, sorry about my delayed arrival.
Welcome.
So I know you were tied up, and you had other commitments this evening. So let us just bring you up to speed here. Police began to escalate enforcement overnight last night. Handed out a lot of tickets, confiscated some vehicles, everything from just traffic tickets, just anything that they could throw at people. Right. Now the mayor has declared a state of emergency in the city of Ottawa.
Yes.
That will pave the way for more funding from senior levels of government, and for him to request more resources to come in, more enforcement resources. So I think we can see where that could go. Whether it goes there or not, military, I don't know. Another Trudeau used the military in that fashion once, and it hasn't been done very often in Canadian history. And coronavirus says, Poland standing by you, Canada. And I think we should take note of that, knowing that the entire world is watching Canada tonight. And these truckers.
Their seats.
The emergency, putting in a state of emergency doesn't surprise me. This is on track with everything we've already said that was going to happen. It looks like this now, but come Tuesday, Wednesday, there's going to be the harder crackdown.
Mm-hmm. Well, especially with the state of emergency being called by the mayor there. So that's really like...
So can you elaborate on that, Brenden? The Tuesday, Wednesday timeline?
So they're putting up with this right now, and then they're doing gradual enforcement. The people who are working on municipal council in Ottawa clearly don't agree with what's happening at all. There's some fractions of, basically, I would say majority of Liberal people who live in Ottawa don't want anything to do with this, and so they're probably pushing really hard. We'll probably see a harder crackdown. So what that means, is that going to mean tear gas and batons? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. But if the truckers' resolve is as strong as I think it is, I mean, that's where it could go. And if that's what it's going to take to get them out of there, then that's what they'll do. Because clearly they don't agree with any of this.
I just want to address quickly James here. Yeah, James, that's true. I'm not an unbiased view. If anyone thinks my comments were unbiased, you'd have to be blind, because I'm clearly wearing my worldview, my views in general on my sleeve here. As a reporter for CTV for over 25 years, I was always careful and did my best to be as unbiased as possible and present all points of view. I provided a platform for all parties, regardless of the story that I was working on, to express their point of view, and I would allow the public to then draw their own conclusions. Here, though, in this podcast, we're providing analysis, and this footage is unedited that we're seeing here, as unedited as we can provide it. So we're providing a lot of raw video and have been from around Ottawa throughout this protest. So that's what we've been doing. And this we're doing because knowing the media the way I know the media and seeing what I've seen happen over the last few years with media and the government funding of media, there's a lot of bias over there. And I can tell you that the media doesn't operate the way that it used to. So we're counterbalancing what the mainstream media is offering with what we're doing here to some degree. Our megaphone is not as loud as theirs because we don't have the budget that they have. But this is an alternative perspective. And wherever you're watching, anytime, anywhere, there's always bias, even if someone is telling you they're not biased. I'm not sitting here telling you that I'm unbiased. This footage is unedited, uncensored, unfiltered. A lot of it, most of it that we're running is that way. What you're watching right now is a live feed from Parliament Hill. And that's it. So, yes, you're right. And I haven't even really begun to comment on Trevor Noah yet. We're going to run a video that Trevor Noah has up, and we're going to explain to you. We're going to unpack it. We're going to analyze that because it shows how his video will illustrate how fearful the federal government in Canada is, how fearful the people on the left side of the political spectrum who are in favor of coercive actions and ongoing restrictions and mandates, how fearful they are of this freedom movement. And if you're not in support of freedom, individual rights, individual bodily autonomy, if you're not in favor of freedom, what are you in favor of? A totalitarian, tyrannical state where you have no rights? Is that what you're in favor of?
I feel like people don't realize that. I know a lot of people do not realize how quickly these things can change and escalate. Right now, a lot of people who oppose the convoy will say, "Oh, these guys are a bunch of whiny babies, and they just gotta do this and da 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 da."
Regardless, convoy.
Yeah, regardless of how you look at it, this is the first steps. And if we lose here, the rest just becomes a landslide because all of a sudden, boom, this policy changes, but you don't get a say because remember, we got rid of all those other rights. So then you're stuck. You cannot deal with it. And then what happens is a country then marches to a point where the citizens have no control. There's no system to help them revive their rights or their abilities or policies or change anything from the down up. And we're trying to prevent that from happening because we're seeing the erosion of our rights. And that's what people who, even if they oppose this, need to understand. This isn't just about the people who are here at these events and these demonstrations. This is about every single Canadian citizen, and to have the same Charter of Rights, the same equal rights as everybody else, and to be able to express them, defend them, and fight for them. That's what being Canadian is. It's allowed us to become for a while, one of the more favored countries in the world. We've had tons of different technological advances and revolutions and contributions to the world, whether it be financial or medically or back in, during the wars back in the day. And it goes on so many spectrums, and there's so many layers to this. And I feel a lot of people they don't really see that. They're so pinpoint focused on the Karen convoy, like you said, Bren.
Oh, I didn't say it. I'm just.
Oh no, sorry. As
regurgitating for.
I just, and like I was saying earlier, Rick, you hear some of these allegations and these stories come from the MSM, and it's laughable. They're just it's hard not to even just is this satirical? Is this supposed to be satire? What you can't even write a good comedy anymore. History's doing it for us.
So can you talk a little bit more about the councillors, Brenden? What have you seen in that regard? You say that the majority of people in Ottawa Municipal Council are not in favor of declaring this a state of emergency?
No, they are in favor of it.
They are in favor of it, you say?
Yeah, because of, wow. I mean, I can't conclusively say it, but I'm going to assume, based off of what I have seen, that majority of the municipality in Ottawa is left-leaning. Anybody who's left-leaning, for the most part, is not in favor of this convoy here. That's basically what I was just making a point with. I did see Viva Fry interview the counter-protesters that they had out in front of Ottawa City Hall yesterday.
Did they actually answer questions?
2 or 3 of them did, and then they were like, "Get out of here!"
Of course.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Peter. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
You know what's great? We all are allowed to have opinions, and you see that Peter actually expressed his.
I love Peter. I
it's
think
his right.
Peter's a great guy.
So I was just going to say, though, that when he was asking these questions, he asked everybody he interviewed about it. He asked them, where is the line drawn for government overreach? Where is it drawn?
That's a good question.
And nobody could answer it.
No, because they're terrified to answer it. Because as soon as you object against it, all of a sudden you get vilified and thrown into the group of anti-vaxxers, and and nobody wants to be labeled that.
And then not only where is the line drawn, who makes the decision?
Mm.
Who makes that call? Like we were talking a little bit, you were talking a little bit about it earlier, but to kind of put it into a better perspective, Ottawa still does not have a roadmap out of the pandemic. They have no plans for ending any of this anytime soon. They don't even have anything drafted for it.
There's a comment here by WL. If you could highlight that one.
WL.
WL.
A lot of comments.
Yeah. Well, I'll read it out here. It says, "Stay the mandates. These people are not the majority of the population. People support you, Trudeau." Now, this isn't about a majority or not majority. In the beginning, was there a vote to see what rules and lockdowns and mandates were going to be put in place? No. So what the hell does the majority at that point have anything to do or any relevance?
Kevin can go back to North Korea.
Like, geez, like it's to the point where people don't realize, regardless of if you know or you don't know, you have rights. They're inalienable. Having knowledge of them doesn't change the fact, or not having knowledge of them doesn't change the fact that you have them. It just changes the fact of how others can respond to it. That's why knowing your rights is so important.
Eve Paquette, a singular wit, says science deniers are stupid.
What is a science denier exactly? Like, that's a really weird term, because...
But you have to ask yourself what science, because science is over-injected with the government trough money. There's clearly a bias of what the government will fund or what universities will fund in regards to studies and what they won't fund in regards to studies. So the bias in doing that in and of itself is despicable.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good idea.
Oh, T-Bone says abusive would have been restricting with no support. Oh, my.
No support.
So what
Think
T-Bone...
he's talking about CERB.
Yeah, he's like, oh, well, it's okay to just shut the whole world down, shut the country down, as long as you give people free money.
Yeah, no.
You know what? That's sort of been a big part of the problem all along, because everyone was kind of like, well, okay, I'll sit at home on my sofa and eat Twinkies while I collect all this free money, which is just the government printing money out of thin air. And
we've all been doing that for the last 15 years.
Not to this degree, Chris.
No, agreed. Agreed.
And then every business, every corporation, every company also stepping up to the public trough to gorge themselves, and that's what has. That's why people have been so complacent largely throughout this, is because they've been getting all this free money. But what does that result in? Massive inflation, the erosion of your real wealth. If you think that it's free, give your head a shake. There's nothing free. We're paying for it with our freedom, and we're paying for it with our wallets, and with the beginnings of shortages and supply chain issues and all of the rest of it. The economy has had the center of it drilled out, and we're now living in a centrally planned economy under increasing government control, where small businesses have been assaulted and in many cases destroyed, and people are living on borrowed money and borrowed time, and people who worked hard and saved for years and decades have seen their actual real value, their net value eroded substantially. So if you're a retiree, like my parents, who are elderly, don't work, and they just have their pension money doesn't go nearly as far. They've probably taken a 20 or 30% hit over the past year. And this is just the beginning, folks. You think that all that money was free? It wasn't free.
There's always an equivalent exchange, whether you see it or not.
We're paying for it right now. And these guys, these hardworking Canadians, these truckers, and other people down there supporting them understand this. They're suffering too. They pay for it at the gas pump every time they go to fill up their rig to deliver your Cheetos from Amazon.
Come on, turn around. Keep turning, camera. It looked like those guys are about to pick up snowballs. The police officers there.
No, they're dousing out the fire.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, no warmth for the protesters. You see what they're doing there, folks? Putting out the fire. Every strike you go to, run by any labor organization, on any picket line, you'll find barrels burning to allow the strikers to stay warm in the middle of the winter. So minus, 20? What's the temperature there tonight? What's it going down to?
I don't know.
Yeah, put out the
-10
fires.
right. -10 right now.
Yeah, put out the fires. Don't let anybody have any warmth. No aid to the enemy in any way. So that's what they're doing. That's the strategy. So if you want it broken up, they're doing their best to get the people out of there. Once they get the so-called civilians out, and they have just the truckers left in their rigs,
I don't think it's going to get, like that. That's going to be a long time to get to that point, because there's people basically now rotating, it seems, whether they be like on foot or not.
Well, I think it'll be like Tuesday, Wednesday.
Now, what about the surrounding areas that we've seen in regards to all large groups of the convoy that didn't quite make it to the downtown core, that had been directed to other parking lots and such, some as close as 6 kilometers away? I'm wondering, once the crackdown of the current truckers in downtown core are dealt with, do you think they'll just, as soon as they get them out, you think they're just going to follow behind them with a barricade so that nobody else can get back in? Because there could just be more waiting. You know what I mean?
Mass Destruction says, but you people have never experienced tyranny.
Ah, that was a good one.
Well, hey, we're starting to experience it now, so you must be pretty happy about that.
That's why
I've had some pretty interesting conversations over the past 6 months with people who had grown up in Romania behind the Berlin Wall, and they had made some pretty trivial or some pretty good connections to what we've been going through and what tyranny is. Like, you can't just lock down people's wealth or what they do or where they can say where they can and can't eat. People get their biddies in a bunch when they say, "Oh well, Jim Crow segregation was such an evil thing, and we'll never do that ever again." But
here we are.
Here we are.
So true.
The only difference between me and Rosa Parks is she could take the train, but she'd just have to sit in the back of it. I'm not allowed on the train, so.
I will be right back, gentlemen. I have to use the washroom.
So when Chris gets back, we'll play our Trevor Noah clip.
Yes.
So we see things here, though, that are... You could see the enforcement blitz happening in different sections.
Yeah. But, as I say, it how you view this depends on your perspective. And Brenden, I was saying earlier that, I'm certain that the people who are opposed to these truckers are looking at it through the lens of prejudice. I'm certain that the way they view these truckers is they're a bunch of redneck, hayseed hick, toothless banjo playing, racists with a southern accent who sit in their trucks and watch reruns of the Dukes of Hazzard and wave Confederate flags.
And listen to misinformation from Joe Rogan.
Yeah, like that, and they're filthy dirty, and there's a level of snobbery here that comes into play as well, and we've seen other working class people come down to support these truckers, and we've seen farmers come down, and I'll tell you this, I guess the people who view the truckers that way, I guarantee you they also view the farmers in a similar light as a bunch of dirty, backward farmers with manure on their boots who stink. That's the way they view them. Who wouldn't understand science because they're just too darn dumb and inbred. That's the way that they view the farmers. The truth is, farmers keep the food on your table. They're highly educated, incredibly smart, understand science better than just about anybody I've ever met as a city slicker, because it takes a lot of know-how and there's a lot of science that goes into farming, and especially today. And that's how we've increased yields, and that's how we're keeping the world fed, is through science. Farmers understand that, and it's farmers who have come down there to back up the truckers. But this prejudice, and we will illustrate that for you in a more elaborate, sophisticated way by playing the Trevor Noah clip in a few minutes, because he also approaches these things from a perspective of prejudice, in my view.
I don't know anything about the Trevor Noah clip as of yet, but I definitely interested to kind of get a glimpse at it. I do know that he's a CBC shill, and he has been on the CBC radio like many times, and probably on CBC a lot too, like on TV. So other than that, I know he's like a Democrat shill in the U.S.
Mass destruction, that's what I think that the truckers are trying to prevent. Because, Chris said this is one of the first steps along the road toward something like this that you're talking about, where we've seen tragedy on a mass scale and death from dictators, communist governments in the past, and fascist regimes. That's what the truckers are trying to prevent, because we're not just on a first step. If you can't see it and feel it, can't you feel it in your bones? Can't you? It's here, folks. If these truckers are not successful, though, I'm still optimistic that our Charter of Rights and Freedoms will be restored. Our freedoms will be restored. I don't believe Canadians will let this country die.
I haven't seen such a big outpouring of patriotism in forever. And, in Sarnia, Ontario, where I live, there is a massive farm convoy on the Highway 402 blocking access today to the Blue Water Bridge. I had seen personally there was like over 5 blocks of transports clogging up in Sarnia, and the OPP closed the road. Almost as if they were in favor of it, because they didn't want anybody going out over there.
Yeah,
But
I agree. Yeah.
Very proud of my community. I'm very proud of where Canada is going with this. But you're correct. The writing is on the wall. It starts when they start infringing on your right to religion, no matter what religion that is. In no circumstance ever should dozens of churches be burned to the ground and you have the head of the country, the prime minister, say, well, it's understandable. In no circumstance should we have Liberal MPs say similar things. We've arrested pastors, even some of them who have hosted outdoor, like in your car, sermons. It's also when you have your freedom of mobility. You could say you could jump on a plane right now and travel if you want, but everything I know about getting on a plane right now, it sounds absolutely absurd and ridiculous. But when you have things like checkpoints and borders at provincial borders, like that's illegal. Like there's so many things that have happened in the past month. Now they've realized they could do it. They're going to do it again, and there's nothing stopping them from making it more difficult to do that.
Yes, I did just describe the poor, disabled, and elderly mass destruction, and yeah, they will be hurt by hyperinflation, and they're being hurt by inflation right now, and that's because the government has been so reckless in the way they've been spending money.
Not to mention not being held accountable for it, or they're attempting to hold them accountable, but they're not answering their questions.
And Brenden, Chris, folks, I think the reason they're declaring a state of emergency more than anything is because these politicians and bureaucrats, these elitists at every level, local, provincial, federal, they're losing their grip on power for them. So for them, it's a state of emergency because the people, real hardworking Canadians from all walks of life, are fed up. They've had enough. And they're saying they want their freedom back. And these politicians, bureaucrats, they don't want to give it up because they've got the power and they kind of like the taste of it. So for them, yeah, it's a state of emergency. This shows that they're weak.
Do not get mad. Do not get angry. Walk away. Walk away. Stand down.
Let's
Without me.
It's fine.
This is what's been going on down there. Dance party again tonight.
Non-stop.
Crowd's obviously much thinner right now because it's Sunday night and a lot of people have gone back to work. But the core group and the truckers in the core remain on scene, and they're dug in. And now, what did you call it, Brenden? The Great Canadian Standoff, right?
Yes.
Lost control of the situation. So now they're going to try and do what they got to do. They've even brought snipers in. They've brought tactical forces with ARs, rubber bullets, and tear gas.
So, yeah, police have been handing out tickets, enforcing every law that they have at their disposal to apply pressure. And we've seen them putting out fires and barrels that have been used to help keep people here warm. And they're trying to restrict the delivery of fuel and even food and water to the truckers in this area. So I don't know how you prevent people from carrying food, but apparently that's what they're trying to do. They've also been booking up vacant hotel rooms en masse to prevent people from coming into the city to support the truckers, using your tax dollars to finance that. So entire hotels, and we showed you video of it yesterday, are sitting empty, booked solid by government agencies, so that there's no place for anybody to stay down there to come in and take part in any of these protests. So let's get to our good friend Trevor Noah.
Oh boy.
So I found this. I don't watch The Daily Show as a general rule.
I don't think
Occasionally,
anybody does.
yeah, I don't know what the ratings are. if you don't know who Trevor Noah is, he took over the Daily Show from Jon Stewart, who was left oriented. He's a lefty, right?
Yeah.
Fair enough. And Trevor Noah is a lefty. And I sometimes will see clips of Trevor Noah online, clips from the Daily Show. And here he is. So I'm just gonna roll this because this is Trevor Noah talking about our prime minister getting COVID, and he talks about the truckers' protest. So yeah, let's let Trevor roll. And as we listen to this, I'm going to stop it from time to time, and we're just going to analyze what he says, okay? Or maybe I'll let the whole thing roll, and or at least a big portion of it, and then we can come back and pick it apart a little bit, because there's more to this than you see on the surface.
Friendliest country in the world, don't count for it. Today, the news friendliest country in the world, don't count for it. Today, the news broke that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has tested positive for COVID. This is just another reminder of how contagious the virus is. Even if you're vaccinated, in disguise oftentimes, COVID will still find you. Now, because he's vaccinated, Trudeau is handling the virus fine. And that's good news for him, because it turns out he's got a much bigger problem to worry about.
Right now, a group of Canadian truck drivers calling themselves the Freedom Convoy, tying up the streets of Ottawa.
Thousands flooded the streets over the weekend. The truckers are using their rigs to block streets and even the entrance to Parliament.
The demonstrations were initially aimed at pushback against vaccine mandates for truck drivers crossing the U.S.-Canada border. But the movement escalated into an expression of disapproval with the Canadian government's COVID-19 policies.
This convoy is all about freedom. It's not only with the truck drivers, it's actually for every single person. You, me, buddy down the road, it doesn't matter. It's all about your free choice.
You can't lock up healthy people and expect them to remain healthy, okay? So the children have not been in school. I personally believe that is wrong. We need to drop the masks, drop the mandates, and start living our lives again.
What this woman is saying is probably poignant. I can't tell.
What?
Over the honking. Watching this made me feel bad for anyone who's actually stuck in that traffic all day, because you realize if you were stuck in that traffic, your honk sounds exactly as the protest honk. You can't separate the two. It's like, pop, 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 pop. Hey, I'm late for work. That's right, brother. Down with the vaccines. But yeah, thousands of these truckers have ground Canada's capital city to a halt. And I'm all for vaccines, but I do get why the truckers wouldn't think that they need them. I mean, think about it. They spend all day, every day, alone in their trucks. The only person they would give COVID to are the hitchhikers that they'll murder or get murdered by. Either way, COVID isn't their biggest problem, is what I'm saying. Now, what I don't understand is why truckers are opposed to masks. I don't get that. I mean, masks are just mud flaps for your face. Just put a sexy lady silhouette on it and feel right at home. And these COVID protests in Canada are nothing new, by the way. Right? Actually, they're not new anywhere in the world. Like, you can walk around outside basically any day and you will see people yelling about how they're not allowed to go outside to do exactly what they're doing. But if you live in Ottawa, well, it turns out you might be seeing this particular protest for a really, really long time.
The people who have organized this say that they will stay out there months if needed. They have raised well over $6 million US to their fund on the GoFundMe page.
The truckers say they're prepared to stay for months as long as they have fuel.
You're prepared to stay for a month?
Yeah. I got a month's worth of food in there. These are people who have arrived, since Friday in through the rest of this Saturday and plan to stay here, many of them say, until their demands are met.
Damn, you can really feel these truckers' passion. I mean, you can't hear it because they're honking over everything, but still, you heard them. They say that they're going to be there for as long as it takes. And I believe them. Yeah, nobody's more prepared for a months-long protest than a trucker. I mean, think about it. They have all of our stuff in the back of their trucks. Next month, you're going to see one of them giving an interview wearing the Snuggie that you ordered for Christmas. And it's not just having the supplies, by the way. Truckers make very effective protesters. Like, they can make a lot of noise. They're used to being away from home. And police are afraid to confront them because any one of those trucks could just turn into a transformer. That shit is too risky. Of course, street protests in general are a healthy part of any democracy, you know, like putting up campaign posters or drawing dicks on campaign posters. But things got a little out of hand in Ottawa when some of the freedom protesters decided they wanted a little more freedom than most people were comfortable with.
While much of the protest was peaceful, this morning police are investigating some incidents involving the desecration of national monuments, including Canada's Tomb of the Unknown Soldier.
Last night, another protester was seen climbing onto the monument. This morning, it was marked with urine stains. The swastika flag seen at protests denounced by 2 Conservative MPs who had openly supported the convoy.
At this shelter in Ottawa, staff say protesters showed up last night demanding food meant for the homeless. One member was assaulted and a security guard was called a racial slur.
Wow. Nazi flags, peeing on war memorials, shouting racial slurs in homeless shelters. Honestly, it's kind of refreshing to see Canadians break their stereotype. Although maybe they did all of this in like a very polite way. Go back to where you came from, eh? I'll give you a ride if you want. I do kind of feel bad for the vast majority of the protesters who aren't Nazis, though, because, like, I mean, people, let's admit it, once a Nazi flag shows up at a rally, the whole thing has just turned into a Nazi rally. You know, it's like when you put the cantaloupe in a fruit salad. Doesn't matter what other fruits are in there, it all tastes like cantaloupe now. Cantaloupe is the Hitler of fruits, is what I'm saying. Well, for more on this saga, let's go now to Desi Leidick, who is live at the protest. Desi, what's the latest on this trucker protest?
Trevor, if one thing's clear, it's
They're trying
Desi,
really hard.
Sorry, can you say that all again, please? The horns were drowning you out. We couldn't hear anything.
Guys, could you please stop honking? I'm like the penis of a starfish.
Sorry, Desi, the horn honking was too loud, except for the starfish penis, which actually, you know what, doesn't really matter. Actually, could you just tell us what's happening right now in Canada? Where's this going?
Yeah, you know what, let me try Morse code.
Morse code? Yeah, because we're both ship captains in the 19th century. Okay, what, are you gonna honk out your message? Oh, Jesus, I haven't done this in so long. All right, if one thing is here,
This is so
it's that
cringy.
the horns are too loud. I mean, I knew that. You didn't have to Morse code. You know what, Desi, this was a huge waste of time. Thank you so much.
Oh, no, thank you so much for sending me up to
Describes the
freezing
show
cold Canada,
quite well.
you asshole. Oh, now you stop honking.
Well, congratulations, folks. I have lost 2 or 3 brain cells from that.
What do you think, Brenden?
I think I lost all my brain cells watching
Like,
that.
what?
Okay,
Wow.
first off, way to gaslight. That whole thing was a whole gaslight. Like, oh, big deal. You gotta wear a mask and get your Fauci ouchie. Big deal. And then he goes, he slanders truckers by smearing them and say, oh, the only people truckers get in contact with are people who they give hitchhikers, they give rides and then later murder. Like,
Or get murdered by.
yeah, like,
Mm-hmm.
what is his point here? Like, holy crap. Like, the best part is this guy is, well, he's clearly, I know he's South African, he's black, and he's basically defending Justin Trudeau, who is a racist.
Actually,
bigot.
I think he's half white, half black, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't want to get into colors too much.
But anyway, yeah.
You get my point. He's defending Justin Trudeau. Like, give me a break.
Mm-hmm.
The whole Justin Trudeau thing is just nuts. Like, anybody else that would have happened to, they would have been cut and shucked from society and never been given the airways ever again. But here we are. We keep voting for this guy, and this Trevor Noah guy is a huge asshole. Like, he's definitely a liberal shill.
Well,
there's a reason why late night TV has taken a huge crap. And that's why Fox News is now king of, like, Greg Gutfeld is now #1, like, because clearly these guys are just Democrat talking points. That's all they do all day.
Well, the reason I bring this up is this shows the impact the truckers have had. The world is watching. Trudeau is worried. The truckers have displayed real political power. Canadians have come out in force, and the people are speaking. This guy is a political operative, and these late night shows have been turned into propaganda machines. I really miss the old days when late night shows were hosted by people like Johnny Carson, Jay Leno, and politics was not commonly sprinkled through the monologues and the shows in their entirety. This show is a propaganda machine. And what he does is promote division and prejudice. I've seen him do it before, and he's doing it right here when he sits there and preaches to people and virtue signals and tells everyone, talks to everyone about racism and bigotry, when he then turns around and spreads this kind of, uses these smears against entire groups of people. He's practicing the exact kind of using the kind of distasteful rhetoric that he accuses other people of using.
Well, that's exactly what the Prime Minister is doing too.
Exactly what the Prime Minister is doing.
It's the norm.
And he's getting people to follow him by making fun of groups of people. He does it right off the bat. Let's play this and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about.
Canada, friendliest country in the world, if you don't count the French parts.
If you don't count the French parts. So he took an entire province and an entire section of, some other parts of Canada, like northern parts of Ontario and just anywhere in Canada where there might be French people, and out east, and there are French people all over Canada, really. But so I don't know what the percentage of French people is in Canada now, but why would you even do that?
I'm gonna be honest. Out of every other joke in this video, that was probably the more comedic one of the stereotypical Canadian. But everything, like the other ones, were just really cringy. That one I could see the humor from, because there's always been that separatist angle and the joke between the English speakers and the French. So I could kind of understand the humor on that one, but a lot of the other jokes.
Look, man, he's right there. He's I don't get it. Okay. Well, why would he even do it? But he did. I don't know if he writes this stuff himself or if he just sits there and reads it off a teleprompter. Either way, it's coming out of his mouth. And there's a lot of this crap that comes out of his mouth. And there really wasn't any need for him to slight French Canadians. So, okay, so he doesn't like French Canadians. Who else doesn't he like?
Today, the news broke that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has tested positive for COVID. And this is just another reminder of how contagious this virus is. Even if you're vaxxed, boosted, and in disguise half of the time, COVID will still find you. Now, because he's vaccinated, Trudeau is handling the virus just fine.
Why do you think he would bring up the, in disguise and the costumes and all of that, Brenden? Like, I think that the reason he does it is because Trudeau has been mocked and criticized for his blackface again through this by people on some of his political opponents, and I think they do this here specifically to defuse and just humorize Trudeau's racist antics, to just wash over it so that people just it's just Justin dressing up again, ha ha ha, and with he didn't mention blackface specifically.
It did show the blackface, but that's where it gets into the gaslighting, because it takes a serious issue that a large population of Canada is very disgruntled, very dissatisfied with how things are running, and he just makes a joke of it. It's like, oh, harmless little Justin Trudeau, he couldn't hurt a fly. Like, that's him making light of it. That's the reason why he's doing it.
So yeah, this is a setup so that they kind of take the negative stuff that's been thrown at Trudeau and find a way to just sort of dismiss it by wrapping it in a little bit of humor so that people just kind of go, oh, it's just Justin dressing up again.
And that's good news for him, because it turns out he's got a much bigger problem to worry about.
And the whole COVID thing, now they're going to, show that Justin did his part and took his jab for the team and, promote the vaccine again. So here we go.
Right now, a group of Canadian truck drivers calling themselves the Freedom Convoy, tying up the streets of Ottawa.
Thousands flooded the streets over the weekend. The truckers are using their rigs to block streets and even the entrance to Parliament.
The demonstrations were initially aimed at pushback against vaccine mandates for truck drivers crossing the U.S.-Canada border. But the movement escalated into an expression of disapproval with the Canadian government's COVID-19 policies.
This convoy is all about freedom. It's not only with the truck drivers, it's actually for every single person. You, me, buddy down the road, it doesn't matter. It's all about your free choice.
You can't lock up healthy people and expect them to remain healthy, okay? So the children have not been in school. I personally believe that is wrong. We need to drop the masks, drop the mandates, and start living our lives again.
Yeah. What this woman is saying is probably poignant. I can't tell. I can barely hear anything over the honking. Watching this made me feel bad for anyone who's actually stuck in that traffic all day, because you realize if you were stuck in that traffic, your honk sounds exactly as the protest honk. You can't separate the two.
So what he's saying is your voice doesn't matter, and the truckers are taking your voice away from you. The truckers aren't interested in listening to anyone. They just want to sit down there and honk. And because all you can hear is honking, they don't really have a message anyway. It's all incoherent. So he's sort of dismissing whatever the message is that is supposed to be coming from the truckers. So, it's just a carefully chosen words to dismiss the entire movement. Comments, gentlemen?
That really about sums it up. Like, this whole thing is a big gaslight, and honestly, it makes me sick. There's a big reason why all these TV shows have gone into the gutter, and it won't be too long before they catch on. Like CNN, for example, with how terrible they are. The vice president for CNN just got thrown in the garbage, and we're going to start seeing a whole lot of house clearing pretty soon, just because the ratings are faltering so badly. Mm-hmm. So it's just a matter of time before we say bye-bye Trevor Noah. And the best part is this isn't even the worst example of late night TV. Do you guys remember a couple months back where Colbert did that whole tequila song, and then instead of saying tequila, they go vaccine?
No.
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Oh, we cannot play that. It is.
It was pretty bad.
It was like.
It's like, pop, 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 pop. Hey, I'm late for work. That's right, brother. Down with the vaccines. But yeah, thousands of these truckers have ground Canada's capital city to a halt. And
have they?
No, that's a lie.
That's not true. It's not true.
Even the prior thing with what he said, the trucker said, like, that's again falsehoods.
Yeah, I spoke to people, around town last week. Most people, unless you're right at Parliament Hill or right downtown, you can still get around.
I'm all for vaccines, but I do get why the truckers wouldn't think that they need them. I mean, think about it. They spend all day, every day, alone in their trucks.
Pretending to empathize, but not really empathizing.
Exactly. It's like a honeypot. He brings it out, and then the listener goes, "Oh, wait, that actually might be a valid point," and then it brings it back in, and then puts it back out and reels it back in. That's exactly what he's doing.
Yeah,
and
pretty slick.
It's coaxing you into a false sense of security, into believing what he's actually, with the verbal diarrhea coming from his mouth.
Well, he's sort of, trying. Oh, I identify with them, even though they're idiots. But I
Yeah,
don't. But I don't
essentially.
really identify with them
Yeah.
because they're really stupid. And that's really kind of the approach they've taken to a lot of this from the beginning, anyway. So
Mhm.
that if you're a virtue signaler, you can sit there and roll your eyes at the stupid truckers, or roll your eyes at the stupid anti-vaxxers, or roll your eyes and nod knowingly at your fellow virtue signaler that you're looking at, as you mock Trumpers or mock conservatives or mock anyone that disagrees with you. Just roll your eyes.
My personal favorite was it'd be people who are like, "Oh, you've that was your decision. Well, I respect your decision, but I can't believe blah 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 blah." And you're like, "Well, either you understand where I'm coming from or you don't."
Well, they're just also stupid. They're just all a bunch of science deniers. They're just all a bunch of dirty farmers. They all stink because they have, they have manure on their boots. The stupid truckers.
The only person they would give COVID to are the hitchhikers that they'll murder or get murdered by. Either way, COVID isn't their biggest problem, is what I'm saying.
Like, excuse me? What the hell was that?
Now, what I don't understand is why truckers are opposed to masks. I don't get that. I mean, masks are just mud flaps for your face. You just put a sexy lady silhouette on it and you feel right at home.
That was a little prejudice. That was kind of ridiculous.
So there it is, folks. Let's smear all truckers and make sure the guy in the picture is a white dude, probably a redneck white dude from the South, with that sexist symbol of that woman on his mask. Thoughts? It's a cliche, is my point.
It is a cliche.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bad cliche.
Mm-hmm.
It's especially because, I mean, you look at how diverse the trucking industry is now. And they're taking truckers and they're going, oh, they're just these cis white gendered males, and so we can shit on them all we want. That's fine.
Yeah. So again, this is really this is how they think of these truckers. But it's not just truckers. It's working class people. That's how Trevor Noah views working class people. That's how the elite view you. That's how they view the people.
You feel right at home. And these COVID protests in Canada are nothing new, by the way. All right? Actually, they're not new anywhere in the world. Like, you can walk around outside basically any day and you will see people yelling about how they're not allowed to go outside to do exactly what they're doing. But if you live in Ottawa, well, it turns out you might be seeing this particular protest for a really, really long time.
The people who have organized this say that they will stay out there months if needed. They have raised well over $6 million US to their fund on the GoFundMe page.
The truckers say they're prepared to stay for months, as long as they have fuel.
You're prepared to stay for a month? Yeah. I got a month's worth of food in there. These are people who have arrived, since Friday in through the rest of this Saturday and plan to stay here, many of them say, until their demands are met.
Damn, you can really feel these truckers' passion. I mean, you can't hear it because they're honking over everything, but still, you heard them. They say that they're going to be there for as long as it takes. And I believe them. Yeah, nobody's more prepared for a months-long protest than a trucker. I mean, think about it. They have all of our stuff in the back of their trucks. Next month, you're going to see one of them giving an interview wearing the Snuggie that you ordered for Christmas. And it's not just having the supplies, by the way. Truckers make very effective protesters.
Yeah.
That's a clear example of him trying to pit regular people against them.
Yep.
They have your stuff, and you won't have your stuff because they're not doing what we want them to do.
Yeah, but it's your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's your Snuggie. You didn't get it for Christmas. It's your stuff.
All because they couldn't bother to get vaccinated.
Yeah, and all because, the supply chain problems are just because of the truckers. It has nothing to do with the way the government has locked the economy down, locked people down. It has nothing to do with any of that. In reality, stuff is still moving. This is just, these trucks are not preventing deliveries of goods across the country.
Well, it's interesting too because of the way the economy's been going. Even before COVID, inflation was starting to rise, and now it's just really going. Which is then what did they raise the minimum wage in Ontario to like $15 or something like 2 or 3 months ago? So the higher the wages, the more money these employers have to pay their staff, which means they can only have so many staff on at a time now because it costs too much to actually have them work. So that's more people making less money because they're working less, and then as well with what we're talking about on top of that, and it just compounds, and then inflation, it goes up, and then it's like a snake eating its own tail essentially.
Yeah, well, we should stay focused on this, and the point that is beginning to form here is that this is propaganda.
Like, they can make a lot of noise. They're used to being away from home, and police are afraid to confront them because any one of those trucks could just turn into a transformer. That shit is too risky.
Of course, tried for that one. They took an internet joke and then tried to bring it to a public light and actually get laughs out of it.
Street protests in general are a healthy part of any democracy. Like putting up campaign posters or drawing dicks on campaign posters.
Drawing dicks on campaign posters?
I haven't seen that.
Isn't that illegal?
No.
I don't know.
I don't think so.
I don't know. Maybe. I suppose it depends on where it's done, I guess.
Depends how detailed.
Why are they talking about that? Why, like?
Well, because that's a type of thing a liberal would do anyway.
But things got a little out of hand in Ottawa.
It just creates this imagery, though, of truckers drawing penises. I don't know.
Some of the freedom protesters decided they wanted a little more freedom than most people were comfortable with.
Oh, they want more freedom than most people are comfortable with. Too much freedom.
While much of the protest was peaceful this morning, police are investigating some incidents involving the desecration of national monuments, including Canada's tomb.
Okay, so they show this. Did they run the clip of what the woman said? No. What's she doing? She turns, she yells freedom, and then she steps down off those steps. That's what that video shows. So let's let it roll.
The unknown soldier.
They didn't run the whole thing.
Night, another protester was seen climbing onto the monument. This morning,
another protester? I've only seen evidence of one, and it was that woman. And she did exactly what I said. For the full video, you can go to the Ottawa Police Service website. They have it posted.
Was marked with urine stains.
Where are the urine stains? Has anyone seen that? I'd like, if it happened, I want to see the evidence.
Show it to me.
Show me the urine stains.
Did they get it DNA tested?
Well, it wouldn't be.
I want to see it. I want to see the evidence. I have yet to see any of that. The media jumped on this early on. Now it's, getting this international attention through Trevor Noah. Where is the evidence?
I have to ask you a question about this, Rick, with your journalist experience.
Yep.
Was that something that they would have reported on like 20 years ago? Like, people have allegedly peed on a monument.
If I was doing that story back when I was a reporter in the, the before times, no, I might have mentioned it, but if I had, I would have said that it was an allegation and there's no evidence. Like you have to show it. If you can't show it, then how are you going to have that hold up in court? And if you can't have something stand up in court, then you better not make the accusation as though it's fact. But that's what they're doing here because it fits their narrative. There's no evidence. We've seen nothing all week, not a single photograph, no video, no nothing. And yet there's snow all around this monument. They said that it happened. There are phones everywhere. So where's the evidence? And if you don't have the evidence, and maybe the police have the evidence, but they haven't released it, but they did release the video of the woman, but did they release any video of the urine stains? No. I haven't seen any of it. If they had that evidence and they could release the evidence of the woman turning and yelling freedom, then where's the rest? Why wouldn't they release the rest? The answer is they would have. The answer is they don't have it. So, but the media keeps on talking about this as though it's a fact. I have seen no evidence of that, not one shred. And I've seen no evidence of these other people claiming that there's been defecation in the streets. We've been watching this raw video all week, and we've seen none of that.
There's been people walking all over the place, and they've said they haven't seen any of the so-called defecation.
And we're, and here we are again. Let's make this go international. And we've already addressed this. Okay. It's one guy, not at the protest, with a Nazi flag, with a few other people, clearly from the way they're dressed and behaving. There's no way these guys are with the truckers, but they group them in anyway.
And by the way, anybody who knows the identity of the Nazi flag man, you can claim yourself. I think it's a $6,500 reward by turning it into True North News. So with Candace Malcolm, that's
yep. So there is a reward, and I'd like to know who that guy is as well. I'd like to know what his real motivation was behind that, and I don't think there's nobody supporting this. Nobody. The truckers aren't supporting him. The Conservatives aren't supporting him. Nobody's supporting that.
Now, to play devil's advocate to just some degree, is as very distasteful as this is. That individual does have the right to do what they did. I don't agree with it or condone it, but they did have the right to do so.
Possibly, although that's open to interpretation in the courts based on these new hate speech laws. So I don't know. I'm not a lawyer.
And see, that's where I come at this, and I look at the idea of hate speech laws. Hate speech doesn't exist as far as I'm concerned. If you can't it's not legally defined, therefore it cannot be legally enforced, period. I don't understand how it even made legislation without an actual clear, concise definition, which there isn't one.
Well, they'll enforce it because they've got the guns.
Flags seen at protests denounced by two Conservative MPs who had openly supported the convoy.
At this shelter in Ottawa, staff say protesters showed up last night demanding food meant for the homeless. One member was assaulted and a security guard was called a racial slur.
Wow. Well, we talked about that as well, and
the thing that gets me about that is they left out the part where the shelter fed the protesters. So I don't know any place in the world ever you walk into their place of business or establishment, whatever, and you assault a worker, and then they go, "Oh, well, we'll give you the food."
I don't know. And they don't talk about the way the truckers have been feeding people on the streets, feeding the homeless down there. They didn't talk about the huge delivery of food donations that the truckers made to the food bank in response to these accusations. As I understand it, they delivered so much food, they didn't have enough shelf space to put it all in the building. So, more smears.
Nazi flags, peeing on war memorials, shouting racial slurs in homeless shelters. Honestly, it's kind of refreshing to see Canadians break their stereotype. Although maybe they did all of this in like a
not really
very polite way. Go back to where you came from, eh?
Oh yeah, they're very polite racists, those truckers, those French Canadians.
I'll give you a ride if you want. I do kind of feel bad for the vast majority of the protesters who aren't Nazis, though, because, people, let's admit it, once a Nazi flag shows up at a rally, the whole thing has just turned into a Nazi rally.
Right.
Bullshit. And that's something that we need to fucking rectify, because for some reason, I've heard this from several people, the same damn thing. That's bullshit. That's absolute bullshit. Like, you literally just said that they weren't Nazis, and then you just turned around and said that they were in the same breath. And
all Nazis.
Like, they literally just double spoke their way out of a paper bag impressively.
Yeah, because because one's there, so you must all be.
It must be, right?
You must all be Nazis.
Like, that doesn't even make sense.
The cantaloupe in a fruit salad. Doesn't matter what other fruits are in there, it all tastes like cantaloupe now. Cantaloupe is the Hitler of fruit, is what I'm saying. Well, for more on this saga, let's go now to Desi Leidick, who is live at the protest. Desi,
don't think we gotta watch this part.
That's enough of the
I think we've
cringe.
had enough of her. So
And
yeah. Just anyway, dudes, this is running because they're running scared. The government is pulling out all the stops here to shut these truckers down, to shut the farmers down, to shut Canadians down who have stood up and told the government we've had enough. Well, the government's pushing back, and they're using every tool that they have to shut this down, from local law enforcement to trying to take the money that Canadians have donated to the truckers, to propaganda, not just through the Canadian media, but through the international media as well. They've unleashed this through people like Trevor Noah, and we've seen other reports as well, and other monologues, other media outlets get involved in this. But this is a prime example. So this is what the freedom movement is up against. And while some people may simply view it as comedy, it isn't. It's carefully crafted language, carefully crafted dialogue, a carefully crafted message wrapped with language that is supposed to get people to laugh through it so that they don't think too much about it while they are absorbing this messaging that actually fills them with intolerance and reinforces this stereotype, as I said, of truckers as just a bunch of backwoods rubes, bunch of hayseed hicks from the hills with southern accents who are a bunch of sexist racists wearing silhouettes of naked women on their masks.
Which I guess that kind of implies that they're misogynist or whatever.
Which is what the Prime Minister would have us believe, right?
And Trevor Noah.
Yeah. So it just, and you know, these two guys are two peas in a pod now. Trudeau and Trevor. Trevor
Sitting
and
in
Trudeau.
a tree.
Yeah.
Kissing.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, they can do that. Just as long as they leave the rest of us alone. Is there any wrap-up comments on this? I've come across something here. Something was sent to me, and I think it's important we show it.
Yeah. Well, I think the point is being made. I'm just saying, folks, keep your eyes and ears open. Think critically about everything you're watching. Think critically about everything I'm saying, everything that you're watching here as well. I've already addressed the whole thing about, oh, you're not unbiased. No, I'm not unbiased. I'm showing my bias here tonight, and I'm admitting that. I want you to be aware of it, and I think it's pretty obvious. Okay, Trevor Noah is biased as well. He, though, does try to disguise it by first empathizing with the truckers, but then smearing the truckers. He's a smear merchant. That's what he is. And one of the things he does is the same thing that our Prime Minister has been doing, and he's spreading hate. He's spreading division. He's spreading prejudice. It is a form of bigotry, and it's directed at truckers. It's directed at farmers. It's directed at working class people. It's directed at the people that are political opponents of the elites who are in power in Canada right now. That's who it's directed at. And they're so afraid that they've solicited his help, Trevor Noah's help, to get an international message out there, because the message of freedom from the truckers and these working class, everyday, salt of the earth Canadians is spreading around the world. They see it and they want to stop it because they don't like it. They don't want you to have your freedom. They want that shut down now because they feel their power slipping away. And that is what he is doing when he's on the air. So be aware of it. It's not the Johnny Carson show. It's not the Jay Leno show anymore. Okay? It's not, stupid animal tricks. This is political propaganda that you're being fed every single night on late night television today.
And it's across the board now. The only difference between Gutfeld and what you get here is Gutfeld tells you what his political standing is.
Yes, it's everywhere. So everything has been politicized, and you can't get away from it now. I don't watch late night television very much anymore, if ever. I really only watch clips from it online because it's just stuff meant to get in your head and get you to think a certain way now. It's not just entertainment anymore.
So, Rick, in the private chat, I put a video there. It was uploaded by Randy Hillier just short moments ago.
Okay.
But it's got pictures. It's got a picture of what we can expect escalations to kind of look like in Ottawa.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Make her full screen.
I will. I'm going to bring it up here. Do we have audio with it, Brenden?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's it. That's it. There we go. Police coming in.
The fuck's that for? That's what we're going to bring it on, man. You go to where I respect your
They're stealing. The police are criminals by stealing from us.
Hands up, don't shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they've got their body armor on. They've got their weapons out.
They take everything?
They're
Let's get SGD to make a video out of
Looks
it.
like the compound. One of the parking lots that they had
Oh, the Waffen SS.
filled with trucks. So I can't confirm, but this is probably one of the areas where the truckers were diverted to, so they didn't, and prevented
Total
from
raid
going
on the trucker
downtown.
compound.
So they knew exactly where they were. They knew exactly when they were going to do it. They just had to wait for the right state of affairs to be able to be implemented, and then they
The
could go
Waffen
in
SS, everyone.
and enforce.
Waffen SS. Shame! Traitors! 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 Shame! 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 That's where you want your children to grow up? Really? Tear gas canisters.
And the world is watching tonight as this unfolds.
Shame! 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 The police said. Well, what do you think's going on here, sir?
Who are you at the first?
Well, it seems we have a bit of technical difficulties, so do please a little bit of patience with us, guys. Going through, we're getting lots of comments as well. It is interesting. One of the comments we saw here does it asks apparently asking if we're against. Oh, here we go. Back up. If we were against law enforcement. No, of course we're not against law enforcement. But law enforcement are just people just like us, and they have a job to do. But they also have the rights that we all have that must be defended as well. I've heard everything's under control in the protester sense. It's just don't break the law, comply. Everything's being taken care of, and everything should be fine as long as. But
And no, we're not against law enforcement.
Not at all.
No.
Right, officer! I hope you have a great night's sleep.
Yeah, like, please don't take the bait. That's just what they want.
Yeah.
If we can maintain positive and keeping it all peaceful, it's going to look...
The purpose of bringing this up and showing this is because now we have a direct example of how the next level of enforcement is happening, and they'll be getting rid of and kicking people out in very short order. It's not that we disagree with law enforcement, but they, at the end of the day, are the agents of the government. Oh, Rick's back.
You got to get a different internet provider, my friend.
No, I've got super fast internet. We're just taxed here, and it's coming in from all different sources. So it's only as fast as the narrowest point on the net. We've got fiber here, but this is a problem, keeping it flowing.
The stormtroopers.
Especially live and uploaded footage from the field in Ottawa.
Oh, that doesn't look like a good idea.
Hey, you're in my house here. You're invited here by us. I'm asking you, can you please go back in this yard now? I'm politely asking you, everyone, can you please go back in this yard?
I'm a friendly traveler.
Hey!
I wonder how many of these police officers are wearing body cams.
I'm not sure. I don't think I've seen any Canadian officers wearing body cams ever.
Like, was that just American law, or was that Canadian law?
Oh, it's back.
Chris, can you please put that link back in the private chat again?
Brenden?
Brenden, somebody? Thank you. I'll bring it up from an alternate source, so it's going to play better. Any more comments?
I'm kind of just baffled by what this next thing is.
Yeah, I kind of got to a bit of a cliffhanger there, and webception.
Okay, so I've requeued that for you guys.
From us.
So we're replaying this clip.
Hands up, don't shoot.
Yeah.
Oh.
We'll have to get SGD to make a video edit of this. Oh, the Waffen SS. A total raid on the trucker compound. The Waffen SS, everyone. Waffen SS. Shame! Traitors! 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 Shame! 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 Shame!
Are you want your children to grow up? Really?
Tear gas canisters.
Be a man and show your face at least, right?
It's interesting to think about wondering if, say the police and or the military were to basically just switch sides. Like, how would that result? Like, what would be the ramifications of that?
If they were to switch sides?
Like, say, if they were all just kind of look at themselves and go, wait a minute, these guys are right. If we realize the message we're trying to get across, like, what if all of a sudden they just swapped, hypothetically? They would basically
Where are you from?
I guess the federal government.
Let's just listen to this gentleman. Can we listen to him?
Yeah, no, it's crazy. They are the SS. They are the Waffen SS, Boomer Waffen Battalion.
Rick, are you able to make it full screen?
Yep. That's as full screen as it gets.
No, there's a full screen button right beside the audio button.
No, that's as full screen as it gets.
I hope you have a great night's sleep tonight.
Shame! 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 Shame!
Move away, please. Let these people through.
Shame! The stormtroopers.
Now, I'm rightly asking you, everyone, can you please go back to this yard?
I'm a friendly traveler.
Hey!
I love friendly traveler.
I'm asking you, go in the yard and film this from the yard.
You're a free person, sir.
I'm asking you politely. It's our yard. We've done good. They've done what they can.
Now, do we have any more context on this, Brenden? Do we know exactly what they've done, or did Randy give us any indication what the purpose of this was?
This is what we get. So, Ottawa police, like Chris was saying earlier, have been directing a lot of the truckers to huge parking lots throughout different times. And so that's what you're looking at there with the parking lot. It appears that they have gotten together and have done a raid. We have not seen that type of equipment. The gentleman with the rifle, we have not seen that type of equipment or the tear gas equipment until this point. This is the new and direct escalation point. So they're going to keep doing things like this. It sounds like there was commentary about them taking stuff out of the compound. I don't know what the context is on that. I'm sure we'll find out more by tomorrow. But that's what happens when you get these types of videos. You don't know. But there you have it. It's raw. It's unedited.
Yeah, just starts when it starts, ends when it ends. And what we're seeing here for sure is police. These are tactical units. People call them SWAT teams. In Canada, the different police services have other names for them. Sometimes they're called a CERT team, a critical incident response team. I personally have been embedded with a CERT team in the past, so I understand how they operate, how they work, and I'm grateful that everything remained peaceful there and that no one was hurt, that all the officers are okay and that all of the truckers are okay, that everyone is okay there. And obviously, no one was injured, and it didn't seem to escalate to any point where anyone was offering any kind of resistance that might result in something tragic. So hopefully we are able to keep things that way. But police are executing their surge and contain strategy, and that means they're taking it to the truckers. They're escalating it. The police are escalating this. We've seen them putting out the fires so they can't stay warm. We know that they're trying to cut off their supply of fuel so they can't run their trucks and stay warm. They are trying to cut off their food and their water as well, so that they're trying to starve them out and freeze them out. And they're trying to reduce the size of the crowd down there using various means, including booking hotel rooms, entire hotels, so that nobody can stay there. And now
I'm trying to get a bead on what type of weapon that is. That's not a rubber bullet gun, is it?
No.
It's the real deal?
Oh, that's the real deal.
Have you ever seen a protest in Canadian history where they brought out the real deal in a city?
Well, I'm pretty sure most they actually make the bullet casings now to have a rubber bullet inside them. So they use actual firearms to fire an actual gun to fire the rubber bullets too. It's just a different type of ammunition.
I don't want to comment any further on the weapons that the police have in their possession right now. Those are tactical units, and they've been. It appears to me that I suspect. I shouldn't say I suspect. Well, those are tactical units. Let's just leave it at that. And we're seeing that they're on site now, and we've seen snipers there, and I'm sure that those are not just rubber bullets on their guns, Chris.
Oh, the snipers probably not. No.
And I don't think.
I'm not saying the people who were there at that specific scene that we've seen. I think anybody who would assume that would be foolish. But I was just explaining that, like, I'm fairly certain that they can. It's not like they have a separate, like a paintball gun.
Those are real rifles. They do have real ammunition. So
that's the first rule about gun safety. So we have to assume it's real. So
and beyond that, we're not going to comment anymore because we don't have any more information than that. All we have is what we've seen.
So what were you going to say regarding tactical units being brought into a city?
Well, you see that we have tactical units on site now. So that's just one more tool that police have to bring to bear on this. And they're already making use of it here. So it gives you more perspective on what their strategy is likely to be in the hours and maybe the days ahead.
It's definitely not going to help anything. It's kind of like that episode of MASH where they had an ammo dump next to the hospital. And they were using the airplane this enemy airplane would come and it would
5 o'clock, Charlie.
It would drop a bomb on the ammo dump, and they're like, well, just get rid of the ammo dump, and then it'll stop coming. And then It's going to be the same type of scenario where they've stepped up their aggression, and it's not going to do them any better.
5 o'clock, Charlie.
It's a valid point, though, because just by throwing their force around, it's not going to make anybody behave any better. Their tactics up until now were very, well, we've heard what everybody has been saying about the police. We don't really have any of it on video or on footage of that, but it's going to make people more on edge, and when you have people more on edge, the outcome is not going to be that great.
Well, it's to bring Mash up again. It's like Hawkeye says to Frank, and he's just like, "Oh, you're a hero," and he goes, "99% of the time, a hero, Frank, is someone who's hungry enough, cold enough, tired enough that they don't give a damn. They're just overall fed up."
So, what do you think? Is this level of escalation on the part of police justified or not?
No. There's children down there. No. That should not even be there. On a regular day, they wouldn't even be allowed to have that in the wide open in the city on a regular day.
I think it's the narrative really that's really influencing a lot of this, because like if you're going to start playing the whole is this justified game, like you're going to have to go back even farther, right? And that's what's really interesting, because if the things that weren't supposed to be happening weren't happening already, we wouldn't be in this situation right now. They wouldn't have to be doing all this stuff. We wouldn't even be in Ottawa. But so it kind of comes to that, like the finger pointing game, right?
We shouldn't be surprised though. This is on target with what me and Rick kind of discussed over the past few days. Like this is, by Wednesday there's going to be something bad happening. What that is, I don't know.
From what I've heard from the organizers themselves and what they've released online and stuff, I'm fairly certain they've expected this. They have they're expecting all the stuff that's coming out, and from what they seem to be doing is playing it out accordingly. So like we've been saying, the best thing we can all do as in support of it at all is stay peaceful.
Yeah.
Don't break the law. Make sure we're still being the best example we can of the protest. Otherwise, this is going to go way worse. And at the end of the day, like you guys are saying, it's going to escalate regardless. Like this is going to get to a point where city officials and the police or whatever, it's going to get to a point where push is going to come to shove, and they're going to say enough's enough because they're just pissed. But it's going to look really, really bad on them if they're going to bust into a place and they're going to start arresting people who are literally, lack of a better term, just lying down, not doing anything wrong, right? And it's just going to make them look worse and worse and worse. And hopefully that'll embolden the rest of the Canadian population who aren't quite on our side yet about this. It's going to show them exactly what we've been talking about and how dangerous it can be.
The Gandhi approach will definitely be to the benefit of everything in the situation. But this is what things look like when the government, not only just the federal government, but the municipal government and the provincial government are against them. The media is against them. Like that, those things there are enough to make the police move a sleight of hand and do something that's irresponsible. I feel I made this correlation with you before, Rick, but it feels like the Dudley George incident where the premier said, "Get those darn people out of the park." He didn't quite say it that nice. He said, "Get those darn people out of the park." And lo and behold, somebody got shot, and they regret it for the rest of their life. Like that's what it's going to be like. They're going to be like, "Get those people out of there now," and then the police will feel emboldened to take whatever action. It's not going to go good.
The world is watching, and the world will judge in the future when this is in the history books. And all we can do is hope for a constructive outcome in the end. But this started as a convoy of freedom that was spreading hope across the country. And we saw children sending cards out and handing out cards and cookies and hugs to the truckers as they drove across the country, Canadians cheering them on from overpasses by the thousands. We're seeing convoys form in other communities. So it's been an outpouring of patriotism, and every aspect of this seems to have been very Canadian. But the smear merchants have gone into overdrive. The media propaganda machines, as we showed you, have been working overtime. And as a result, we're getting this because people from this is something that has been, there are clear political lines that have been drawn here now. And depending on which side you're on, you're approaching this from a different perspective. On the one side, you see people supporting it because there's a feeling that it's an effort to save the country, to restore freedom, to restore the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. On the other side, people feel this is some sort of an insurrection. We've seen the police chief compare this to a January 6th type incident that we saw in the US, and even went so far as to say that his police service had prevented a January 6th here in that news conference that he held.
Yeah.
And yet there was no evidence that any of that was transpiring, and the truckers never gave him that. So it appears that in many respects it's been manufactured, and whether there is any sort of true threat down there or not, which we've really seen no evidence of, no true evidence. And if they do have it, they haven't shown that yet. But no evidence that we've seen. But they're proceeding to implement a political solution to this, or at least an enforcement solution using law enforcement and every tool in that regard that they can bring to bear here. So again, the country is going to end up divided over this, and they're doing their very best to make sure that public opinion comes down on their side, that the majority of Canadians will end up supporting police and government actions here to shut this down and end this effort to restore the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and end vaccine mandates. Where will it end up? Do you guys think where do you think public opinion is on this? Because we're all in an echo chamber on social media. It's really always hard to gauge where we're at with public opinion. Do you think the public is overall? Do you think the majority supports what government is doing here? Or do you think the majority of Canadians are behind the truckers?
Well, it's tough to say. There's a big difference between people who will go to a protest and do all this, but when they come home, do they still stick to those values, or do they just go right back and comply because they're at home? I've been guilty of that myself. I'm sure many people are, because to stand for your convictions it can be very difficult for some people, especially now because people don't deal with anxiety and confrontation and stuff well. But I think that would be a real question, because you wouldn't be able to gauge it accurately, say, going to the grocery store, because there'd be a lot of people who would want to prevent the confrontation of not wearing a mask in the grocery store. You know what I mean? There's that balance. Of course, I don't ever want to have to wear a mask anywhere. ever again.
I'm just asking, Chris, does the public support the truckers or do they support the government?
That's what I'm trying to get to. It's hard to dictate by just looking, because there's anomalies like that. There's anomalies where people say one thing and do another, and we're human beings. Not to mention pollings don't work either, because only the people who take the poll are counted, right? It's tough to say. It really is tough to say unless you're willing to go out there and have those conversations with people.
I'm going to go out there and say, yes, the people are turning. I had a very hopeful moment today where a good friend of mine, I haven't spoken to them in months, they called me and they said, Brenden, I am so sorry how I have acted towards you and your ideas. They went on to say they understand what's going on, that there is a massive amount of media lying. Like, this is somebody who my friendship was greatly impacted with. That whenever you go to see them, you couldn't bond over anything because it was the mainstream media lies that were impacted in their head. And that we were night and day on this issue. But they called me today and they said they were sorry and they were really excited for what the truckers are doing and what is going on in this country coast to coast. Things are changing. We've had that poll come out in September that said more and more people are looking more favorably at ending mandates. Are there people who still agree with mandates and want all the mandates and to be locked down harder, Daddy? You're damn right they do. But those people are shrinking, and they'll continue to shrink. I have hope, and all of us must keep hope.
Yeah, I think it's difficult to gauge where the public is at on this. I think government has been gauging public opinion, and I think one of the reasons they're moving in the way they are is because they believe the public will support them in the end. They're politicians and bureaucrats directing this, and I think they feel they have at least 50% of the people behind them, and they may be right. I think the country remains deeply divided tonight. And I think it's one of the darkest periods. It is probably the darkest period in Canadian history. I hope and pray we find our way back to what Canada was, back to a free and truly tolerant society, instead of the divided, hate-filled society that we're living in right now. I'm deeply disturbed by what we've seen tonight, deeply saddened by it, and I just hope that everyone there stays safe overnight, because I know that we're going to see more escalation in the hours and possibly the days ahead, if it even lasts that long. But as I said before, I remain optimistic, because I think even if they yank all the trucks out of there, even if they arrest a lot of these people in Ottawa, I don't think Canadians will stand for it. I think that from what we've seen, the desire for freedom is spreading. I think you're right, Brenden. It's sweeping over the land. It's sweeping over the country. And these politicians who are clinging to power and have had to resort to using this kind of force because they think this will crush their political opponents, I think they're sadly mistaken. I think in the end, this will only make people open their eyes more, and I think it will only galvanize Canadians who are determined to restore freedom in Canada. I pray for everyone down there tonight. I pray for the country.
It's not going to be an easy road. There's going to be a lot of growing pains here.
Well, gentlemen, with that, it is 9 o'clock. I don't know how much longer you guys are planning on staying, but I myself am going to be logging. So I'd like to say thanks to the viewers. My name is Chris from the Flow Discourse. Thanks for having me again, guys. You guys have a good night, and I'll be sure to tune in. You guys have a good one.
Logging out too, Rick?
Yeah, it's after 9 o'clock. We will try to monitor things overnight for folks, and hopefully we'll be back tomorrow and we'll be able to share more information with you. And I know that between now and this time tomorrow evening, there's going to be a lot to talk about because a lot is going to happen. So with that, I am Rick Walker with Maverick News and Maverick Multimedia. Thank you, everyone, for watching tonight. Please subscribe to our channels. Make sure that you hit the notification bell. Like our social media platforms as well. Please, it will help us immensely to stay on here doing what we're doing and spreading these videos to Canadians.
And I'm Brendan Kennedy, the host of the Flow of Discourse. Thank you so much for watching.
And with that, we're over and out. And that's a big 10-4. And catch you on the flip side. Thanks for watching, everybody. This has been Freedom Convoy 2022, cruising to the Capitol.